From a family of fishermen and farmers to the true immortal of water and virtue, this video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 276, Wind and Thunder Python Breakthrough. After Li Quanqing and Gengjin Sword had a conversation, they were overjoyed and heard good news. Because a Gengjin Sword was born in the Xianlong lineage of the beast taming sect, they were going to open the dusty Xianlong Tower for the use of the new Gengjin's war pet. By the way, with the holding of the Gengjin conference, fellow disciples will be invited to witness together, and several places will be released to enter the Xianlong Tower for baptism. Of course, this fellow disciple means that 99% of them are other disciples of the Yuanying sect. Ordinary Gengjin forces can't get a place at all. Being allowed to eat in is a face-giving. Fortunately, after Gengjin Sword returned to the family and reported the matter to his patriarch father, and with the praise of Han Kaizenren, the head of the Jin family, who had never met before, decided to make this good relationship, relying on the friendship between his own family and Xianlong's engine. He locked a place in advance. Speaking of this in detail, Li Quanqing was also overjoyed and took out a lot of pills to give to Gengjin Sword, this little friend. It was at this time that he realized how powerful the Xianpeng Jin family was in the beast taming sect. The Jin family has been passed down for tens of thousands of years, and more than one Yuanying's engine has emerged in history. In the past 1,000 years, although it has declined a bit, and no Yuanying seeds have appeared, it still has a 4th level golden winged Dapeng bird as a guardian spirit beast thanks to the legacy of its ancestors. In terms of power in the sect alone, it is not much worse than the Yuanying family. When Li Quanqing heard about the 4th level golden winged Dapeng, he couldn't help but think of the golden Dapeng feather he had obtained in the depths of the spirit stone vein. The 4th level monster beast is rare, and it may be the same golden winged Dapeng. Unfortunately, this Dapeng feather has been given to Li Quanqing to refine his life magic weapon, and it has been consumed. Otherwise, it can be used to get closer to the Jin family. Gengjin Sword stayed in the Qinghai cave for a few more days, then said goodbye and left, ready to continue traveling in the East China Sea. This guy seems to be a person who can't sit still, just like a rock that wants to spread its wings and fly high, yearning for endless freedom. Before leaving, he left a token representing the Jin family, which can be used to go to the Beastmaster sect, participate in this Golden Elixir conference, and bravely enter the Xianlong Tower. To be precise, it was Aoking who bravely entered the Xianlong Tower. Only creatures with dragon blood can enter that place. For ordinary human beings, it is not very useful. Beastmaster sect. Li Quanqing stroked the token, feeling very much looking forward to it. After all, it is a Yuanying sect. He plans to use this year to improve his alchemy skills to the true 3rd level. With the foundation, he will be more confident when facing these Yuanying disciples. The following days fell into a dull state. The practice of the golden elixir realm is not a matter of just a few years, or even a dozen years, to see effective results. It requires time accumulation and foundation. Especially for the late key refining called Jinwen Qinghai Carp, the spiritual energy balls he opened had almost lost their effect on him. Only the Xianai spiritual liquid, after being accumulated in large quantities, can be used together to achieve a good effect and cultivation. Therefore, Li Quanqing is more eager for Aoking to break through the 3rd level. At that time, relying on the power of the dragon blood golden core monster beast, he can use his own demonic energy to create a group of followers, and perhaps he can create batches of green-horned fish dragons. If Aoking can get a fragment of the ancient dragon gate when he breaks through the golden core, Li Quanqing thought happily. If he can really get a fragment of the dragon gate and make it into a magic weapon, it will definitely benefit people endlessly. The Xianai spiritual liquid on his fingertips burst into spiritual light. The color was as blue as the sea, and waves of sound came out, and it was refined into the Danshan. For Gengjin cultivators, the Xianai spiritual liquid is barely enough, and it can still be used as a cultivation resource to speed up the breakthrough. After breaking through the nascent soul, I'm afraid that only the real Shyanai true water can assist in cultivation. While practicing alchemy, Li Quanqing was also considering whether he could use the Shyanai spiritual liquid to refine pills, to exert stronger medicinal effects, or concentrate these spiritual liquids and try to extract a drop of Shyanai true water from them. Unfortunately, they all failed in the end. Time passed slowly, and during this dull period, King Li also had a big thing happen. Previously, Z family, Yun family, Shen family and other foundation building families wanted to marry with Li family members, and even organized a blind date conference. After several years of polishing and cultivating feelings, it has indeed succeeded in marrying many beautiful women and talented men, and they have become immortal couples who support each other. Li Quanqing was able to know this because his cousin Li Quansu also found a good match in this blind date conference. She was a direct descendant of Baozuzi family, born in a noble family, and was definitely the direct bloodline of the foundation building great cultivator, so she could have a relationship with Li Quansu. As for her appearance, she was also born bright and beautiful, generous, and gentle in dealing with people, which was quite pleasing. Both Li Quansu and her aunt were very satisfied and accepted this daughter-in-law. Li Quanqing was very satisfied to see that this kid chose to get married first and then start a career, and he directly gave him a foundation building pill as a gift. For him now, this kind of pill is no longer precious. As long as the supply of medicinal materials is sufficient, he can open the furnace to refine pills and completely get rid of the clamp and suppression of the Shuhua sword sect in this regard. Therefore, the Li family has released two quotas for foundation building pills at the Qingyu Grand Auction several years later, so as to harvest a large number of spirit stones and attract the surrender of those immortal cultivation forces. With the old patriarch sitting in the family and sorting out many miscellaneous matters, he, the nominal patriarch, does not need to worry about this aspect and can just be a hands-off shopkeeper. Finally, more than half a year has passed, and the Wind and Thunder Python King has finally refined the thunder essence contained in the bamboo leaf of the sun and moon god bamboo, trying to break through the late stage of foundation building. In the vast sea bowl, demonic energy rolled in, mixed with violent thunder power, spreading like a dark cloud, almost covering the entire island. A great pressure swept out, even causing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to be agitated, and set off a raging wave in the sea. Because the Wind and Thunder Python King made too much noise, Li Quanqing threw it out of the bowl directly, so as not to disturb the spiritual veins of heaven and earth that he had artificially created in the Hanhei bowl. Above the fish pond, the huge body of the Wind and Thunder Python King appeared out of thin air, like a purple-blue mountain ridge undulating and winding in the thunder. A pair of huge wings spread out, surrounded by boundless wind and thunder, covering the sky, and vaguely carrying some Taoist rhyme of the sun and moon thunder. The bamboo leaf was suspended above the forehead of the Wind and Thunder Python. Although it was a small piece, it contained amazing power, flashing with gold and silver thunder, and blooming all over the sky, showing the phantom of the sun and the moon. Li Quanqing stretched out his hand and immediately drew the essence from all directions to supply the Python King with a breakthrough, so as to avoid insufficient spiritual energy. After 2 days and 2 nights of attempts, this guy finally succeeded in breaking through, and the demonic energy soared into the sky, suppressing one side. Harvest a late stage foundation building Wind and Thunder Horn Python, and reward a golden elixir spiritual item Kangpan Lei Ki. Right square bracket. Chapter 277 Kangpan Lei Ki. Under the sky, boundless spiritual energy gathered and turned into rolling dark clouds. Dazzling thunder flashed and bloomed in it, like a thick silver snake, and there was a violent wind whistling past, tearing the sky. The Wind and Thunder Python King swam freely in the thunder clouds, feeling boundless. His scales stretched out, and his majestic demonic energy spread, which was indescribably comfortable. This guy was originally a wild monster, tamed, so he was quite wild, and yearned for unrestrained flight. Moo. In the depths of the fish pond, Ao King stuck his big head out, and looked at this guy. Surrounded by countless fish eggs and grandchildren, he could be called a demon king. Li Quanqing waved his hand, and called the Wind and Thunder Python King to come. In front of this guy's huge body, he was as small as a speck of dust. But the Python King did not dare to be disrespectful. He was very well behaved, respectfully stretched his head in front of him, and rubbed the python's head angrily. A spiritual object for forming a pill. Li Quanqing crushed the ball of light, and a ray of lightning suddenly appeared. It was dark green in color and deep like a rock. Like the golden thunder for exorcism, the Kangpan divine thunder was also a special kind of thunder that was born in the beginning of chaos between heaven and earth. The so-called thunder key is the origin of thunder, which is equivalent to the purest source of power. What's more strange is that this thunder is like an airflow, condensed but not dispersed, and it seems like a flowing stone, emitting deep thunder light, dazzling. As soon as the Kangpan Thunder Key was taken out, the eyes of the Wind and Thunder Python King were straight, and he kept howling, full of desire. I'll keep it for you first. It's not time to use it yet. Li Quanqing turned his palm, and immediately put away the Kangpan Thunder Key, waiting for the spiritual python to build a great perfection before using it. After all, among the thunder attribute monsters raised, there is no more suitable than the Wind and Thunder Python, and there is no second thunder spiritual root foundation cultivator in the family. In a sense, it can be regarded as self-production and self-sale. As for whether the Wind and Thunder Python can finally break through the third level, it all depends on his own luck. In the following days, Li Quanqing once again lived a dull life of cultivation, and finally successfully refined a third level elixir, the Demon Spirit Pill. As the name suggests, this elixir is specially fed to spirit beasts, and is considered a high-level animal food pill. Because the bodies of demon beasts are strong, unlike humans, they do not need to consider the elixir poison too much, and the medicinal properties are strong enough. Therefore, the difficulty of refining the demon spirit pill is much less than that of ordinary third level spiritual pills. It can be regarded as a trick, and it can barely be called a third level alchemy master. Li Quanqing feeds his own spirit beasts with the demon spirit pill, which can greatly shorten the time for the foundation building demon beasts to break through, and can even help them break through the bottleneck. The only pity is that the medicinal materials needed for this elixir are quite precious. Every time a furnace is fired, it is all worth a lot. Not long after Li Quanqing mastered the demon spirit pill, the 1-year period finally arrived, and he could go to the beast taming sect to participate in the conference. He set off decisively, choosing to go alone, and brought along Ao King and Long Yandiro, the spirit beasts. Both of them have the blood of the dragon flowing in their bodies. If they can enter the Cheyenne Long Tower to seize the fortune, it would be great. Stepping on the waves, Li Quanqing flew towards the direction of the Beastmaster sect, gradually going farther and farther, quietly leaving the Purple Blood Sea. If the location of the Gengjin sect is close to the mainland in the entire East China Sea, the location of the Beastmaster sect is actually located in the outer sea of the Demon Clan, on the edge of the front line of the human-demon battlefield, which is also the most dangerous place in the entire East China Sea. During this period, Li Quanqing also found out a lot of information about the Yuanying sects in the East China Sea through various channels. He found that the more powerful the 4th level sects, the further away from the mainland, and the sphere of influence spread deeper into the East China Sea. It was as if they were deliberately staying away from the Zhongshan mainland and the way of immortality, full of fear. Compared with the rampant wild demon clan, it was the powerful and prosperous Changsheng Xian dynasty that made them more uneasy. Li Quanqing drove the Hanhei Bowl, turned into a stream of light, shuttled through the clouds, and flew towards the open sea at a high speed. This was his first time to go deep into the East China Sea. As he flew farther and farther, the color of the sea water under his feet became deeper and deeper, and there was an ancient and wild atmosphere flowing. The island monks passing by along the way had an extra aura of sturdiness. There are many islands near the open sea, scattered all over the place, but there are very few human beings living there, and they are quite concentrated. All of them are under the protection of the powerful immortal cultivation forces. Compared with the stability and prosperity of the inner sea, the open sea is undoubtedly much more dangerous. Small groups of monsters often sneak in, bloodbath the entire island, and various tragedies occur. As Li Quanqing traveled along the way, he felt that the number of monsters living in the sea was indeed increasing. After all, the human race had just seized these areas from the monsters not long ago, and they were still digesting them. At night, the stars were dotted, and the moon was high. Under the deep night, the cold moonlight sprinkled on the world, like mercury pouring on the ground, illuminating the sea surface with sparkling and silver light. For a moment, even the light of the starry sky was obscured by the brilliant moonlight. The Hanhei bowl flew low and fast, riding the wind and waves, leaving a white mark on the sea surface, absorbing the water essence in the seawater to replenish the consumption. Li Quanqing sat cross-legged in it, and took out a jade slip sea map for reference, to avoid going the wrong way, and failing to catch up with the Golden Elixir conference in time. King also sat cross-legged with him at the mouth of the bowl, looking at the dazzling moonlight reflected on the water surface, and suddenly a low hum came with a burst of thoughts. This pure moonlight, is it actually drawn by humans? Li Quanqing raised his eyebrows, and then he realized that the bright moon above his head was indeed exceptionally bright and somewhat shockingly large. This scene really resembled the movement of King when he was practicing, receiving the moonlight in the sky, and worshipping the moon. It was just that the noise was much louder. The moonlight was so bright that it illuminated thousands of miles of the sea, so he didn't react for a while, and broke into it. Avoid this place. Li Quanqing made a decision, and didn't want to find out the truth, so as to avoid unnecessary trouble. The vast sea bowl drew an arc, and began to move towards the periphery of this area of water, preparing to move away. Moo. King looked at the pure Taiyan essence in this area of water, and couldn't help but secretly absorbed a lot of it, and refined it into his own demonic power. Li Quanqing took a few glances, and saw that nothing special happened. Only then did he feel relieved, and let the green-horned fish dragon intercept a lot of moonlight for cultivation. Finally, they passed through this area of water safely, and the vast sea bowl emerged from the dazzling moonlight, and it was calm, and went away all the way. What Li Quanqing didn't know was that when they broke into this Taiyan area, they were noticed by the cultivators in the center of the water area. It was an extremely beautiful woman, suspended in mid-air, bathed in the moonlight, like a fairy who was about to fly away on the wind. Extremely beautiful, sacred and pure. She looked into the distance, as if she was thousands of miles away, seeing through the barrier of the Hanhei bowl, and seeing Li Quanqing inside. Such a pure water elemental magic power, it seems to be the same as my Shyandao inheritance. Chapter 278 Beast Tamer Sect. Under the moonlight, a beautiful female cultivator stood in the clouds, with a cold temperament. Her moon-white dress was as thin as a veil, and her rings and bracelets jingled. She looked like a fairy who had fallen from the moon palace to the mortal world, not caring about worldly things. The breeze blew the corners of her clothes, outlining her proud curves. Her skin was white and delicate, almost transparent under the moonlight. Her eyes moved slightly, and she saw the large sea blue bowl thousands of miles away, and the giant and cultivator sitting cross-legged in the bowl. With just one glance, she sensed the familiar breath of mana, as if she was born from the same source as her, and was naturally close to her. The inheritance of the Shyandao lineage, that has been lost. The female cultivator wanted to catch up to find out, and raised her slender ankle, but finally gave up, staying where she was, and watching the other party go away. She waved her sleeves, raised her hand, and refined the moonlight in the sky, turning it into the clear Taiyan spirit liquid as clear as glass, and put it into the jade bottle. Then she turned and left. Li Quanqing didn't know that he had easily been seen through by others. Of course, even if the other party was a Yuanying Zenjin, he could only perceive that it was the inheritance of Shyandao that was lost outside. As for the origins of Bahei, Kanghei, Zenhei, or other factions, it was unclear, unless one could feel his magic power in person. The Hanhei bowl trembled slightly, and the magic power swept quickly towards the distance, cutting through the sky under the night sky, and disappearing from sight. Until the night was about to end, the sun rose in the east, a touch of purple air appeared from the horizon, and the warm sunlight shone on the boundless East China Sea. Li Quanqing finally arrived at his destination. It was a majestic mountain range as high as the sky, standing between the sea and the sky, reaching the depths of the clouds, with heavy mist, and filled with an indescribable vastness. There were many islands scattered around, which looked full of vitality. From time to time, there were tigers roaring, monkeys crying, whales singing, dragons roaring, and the roars of many spirit beasts. But in front of this pillar-like mountain, it seems particularly small, just like the difference between a giant tree and duckweed, which is particularly shocking. With the geographical environment of the East China Sea, the water essence is abundant and the earth veins are deep, so it is natural that such a wild dragon vein mountain cannot be born. This was 1,000 years ago, when many Yuan creatures of the beast control sect joined forces to move a sacred mountain from the mainland. It is said that it is extremely distant and has existed since the beginning of the world. Since ancient times, the ancestors of the beast control sect have used this wild sacred mountain as the sect's residence and have experienced countless years of magic power sacrifices. Even from this sacred mountain, more than one god transforming venerable has walked out, and they also left a backhand before ascending. This has created the unshakable position of the beast control sect, with a profound foundation. Even though it moved out of the mainland that year, it can still look down on the East China Sea and overlook the countless immortals. Li Quanqing did not approach rashly. He stopped the magic weapon in front of this dotted island and took out the token left by Gengjin Sword Art to activate it. This is not only a communication token, but also has the function of positioning. Not long after, a dazzling golden light flew out from the savage divine mountain, tearing through the clouds, stirring up the clouds, and quickly flew towards here. It was a majestic golden winged rock, with brilliant feathers all over its body, and its blazing golden pupils seemed to be cast in gold. It was flowing with an astonishing third order pressure, and it was fierce and majestic. On the back of the golden rock, there was a middle-aged man with a dignified appearance sitting cross-legged. He had 3 long beards, and he was majestic without anger, and he had a sense of righteousness. He was wearing the clothes of the elders of the beast taming sect. On his chest, back, and sleeves, there were embroidered patterns of golden rocks spreading their wings to fly, forming a shining, ancient gold character. Obviously, this was Jin Zinpeng's biological father, the current head of the Xianpeng Jin family. In terms of cultivation alone, he may not be the strongest cultivator in the Jin family, but he is definitely very smart and far-sighted, and has great majesty in the family. While Li Quanqing was looking at him, Jin Yongxiao was also looking at him. His eyes were bright, as if they were shining, making it difficult to look directly at him. "I'm the immortal Han Hei, nice to meet you, fellow Daoist Jin." Li Quanqing started to introduce himself. When he was out, he naturally couldn't say anything about the Qingyu Li family and the Purple Blood Sea. This was a Yuan sect, and others might not have heard of the Shuhua Sword sect, so he gave himself a Taoist name. It was a good match, to name it after his own life magic weapon. "I often hear my son and senior brother Hanshi mention you, saying how heroic and extraordinary you are. Now that I have seen you, I feel that hearing about you is worse than meeting you in person." Jin Yongxiao stopped in front of him, while driving the golden peng spirit beast, smiling warmly, looking quite friendly. "Ha ha ha, you are too kind, fellow Daoist." Li Quanqing also smiled and started chatting with him. Since both parties came with good intentions, they had a good conversation for a while. With the introduction of this fellow Taoist, Li Quanqing was able to step into the savage divine mountain and enter the core area of the real beast taming sect. This is a top-notch 4th level spiritual vein. The concentration of spiritual energy in the core even reached the 5th level, which can support the daily practice of the divine transformation cultivators. As for the islands scattered around, they are the areas used by the beast taming sect to settle the mortal kingdom. They are managed by disciples in the key refining foundation establishment realm one by one, and are quite orderly. As he approached the divine mountain, Li Quanqing could feel the majestic artistic conception more and more. The mountains rose and fell like dragons, and even the vast stars did not have such momentum. This is a dragon vein that was bred when the world was created. It is even rumored that it was contaminated with the breath of immortals, which is why it can survive for thousands of years and be preserved to this day. Jin Yongxiao smiled and told him the history of the beast taming sect. Several cultivators who established the sect in the past even heard the immortals preach. This sect is extremely ancient. It can be said that all the beast taming techniques in the world are passed down from it. It can be said that from scratch, a special cultivation system in the world of immortal cultivation has been opened up. Li Quanqing landed on the sacred mountain and suddenly felt his whole body sink and the operation of his mana in his body was a little obscure. Obviously, the gravity suppression here is much stronger than outside. Living in this mountain range on a daily basis can even strengthen your body and have many benefits. He walked on the surface of the mountain with Gengjin Sword Art. Wherever he looked, there were vast ancient forests, rugged rocks, and a wild scene, which seemed quite primitive. Even those buildings seemed very old, with magnificent lines, very neat, and not too many decorations. This sacred mountain is a whole mountain range, with many hills belonging to various sects. For example, the Xianlong lineage is located in the tallest peaks among them, and its shape is like a real dragon, with a strong mountain dragon aura rising into the sky. The place where Li Quanqing is now is the private territory of the Xianpengjin family. Being placed in a cave, he is quite comfortable. Unfortunately, he is not a cultivator of the beast taming sect, so he cannot go to many places for fear of breaking taboos. Chapter 279 Peacock Breakthrough. Li Quanqing settled down in the cave, arranged by the Jin family, quietly waiting for the arrival of the grand ceremony of the newly promoted Chindan cultivator in Xianlong Mountain. He also stayed in this cave for entertaining guests with peace of mind, rarely going out, and did not show off everywhere, causing too much trouble. You know, he was able to get a place to enter the Xianlong Tower, but it was all thanks to the power and favors of the Jin family. The Xianlong Tower is so precious, containing fragments of the ancient dragon gate, which can activate the dragon blood in the body of the Jianamang, break the shackles, and break the realm of cultivation. Every place is very precious. Even the cultivators of other Yuanying sects are jealous, and many people are willing to break their heads to grab it. Now, he has successfully obtained a qualification, and he has offended many people. He should be quiet and wait in seclusion to avoid unnecessary trouble. Fortunately, Gengjin Sword Art seems to be quite interested in him, and comes to discuss Taoism and cultivation with him from time to time. It seems that they met too late. Li Quanqing finally came to the beast taming sect, so he naturally would not miss this opportunity to ask the other party for advice on the art of taming beasts. In particular, how to sign a contract with a third level monster, enslave the other party, and be devoted to it, rather than have any accidents. A grown-up golden elixir monster, instead of being trained from a cub. You really are going to give me a hard time. Gengjin Sword Art showed a hint of helplessness on his face, thinking for a moment. I wonder what kind of monster it is, what its temperament is, and whether it is docile. Li Quanqing did not hide it, took out the Hanhei bowl and flicked it, and suddenly revealed part of the scene. I saw the void butterfly quietly floating in the air, its whole body curled up into a huge sphere, shining silver, like a silver white star, containing amazing spatial power. A powerful demon beast that controls the power of the void. This appearance should contain the blood of the rumored void beast. Daoao's good fortune is really enviable. Gengjin Sword Art is worthy of being the elder of the beast taming sect. He is knowledgeable, and can detect the source of the blood of this demon beast at a glance. He thought for a moment and smiled. I have seen in ancient books that, because the void beast is the mount of the immortal, its personality is always calm and quiet, and it is particularly docile. It is a kind of spirit beast that is very close to the human race and loyal, and it has the power to find treasures. Daoao's beast should be the same. I guess it took the initiative to follow you, and took a fancy to one of your treasures, so it refused to leave. Li Quanqing nodded and admitted that the void butterfly did covet the abundant void power in the Hanhei bowl, so he chose to stay. Moreover, after being subdued for so long, it is indeed safe and stable, not making trouble, and honestly staying in the bowl to practice. In that case, it is not good to subdue it by force, and it may even cause the spirit beast to resist. It is better to subtly influence it, and slowly enhance the goodwill between the spirit beast and the master. Li Quanqing nodded repeatedly after hearing this. Please teach me, fellow Daoist. I have a heart-to-heart contract inheritance here. After practicing, you can communicate with the spirit beast. Long-term practice can change the spirit beast's subconsciousness, making it like a biological parent. Gengjin Sword Art took out a jade slip, which was his personal gain. As for the real inheritance of the beast taming sect, it would definitely not be passed on to outsiders. Li Quanqing took the jade slip and comprehended it for a moment. There was a lot of joy in his eyes. It was really a great harvest. This kind of heart-to-heart contract is somewhat similar to the essence of the slave beast seal. Both are hints to the soul of the monster beast, but it is more advanced. From the beginning, the slave beast seal must invade the soul of the spirit beast. It is okay for a cub, but it is naturally incapable of dealing with an adult monster beast. The heart-to-heart contract is different. At the beginning, it only starts with the subtle soul, and cultivates the contract of loyalty imperceptibly. When the relationship between people and spirit beasts is close enough, they can guide the spirit beasts to open their souls, plant the heart-to-heart contract, and communicate with each other. It is equivalent to reversing the order of the slave beast seal. The principle is basically the same. It is a method of controlling beasts by ancient cultivators. Li Quanqing stroked the jade slip. He was very satisfied to get such a harvest. The beast control sect must have the inheritance of forcibly enslaving the golden elixir monster, but he didn't expect it at all. It was too far away. It was enough to get this heart-to-heart contract. As the ceremony approached, the entire beast control sect began to seem quite lively. Many cultivators approached, even those who were refining key and building foundation came to join in the fun. Although they may not be qualified to set foot on the savage divine mountain, they were already quite satisfied to be able to meet fellow Taoists in the outer islands, hold transactions, and exchange what they had. Li Quanqing took this opportunity to put on a vest and participated in many auctions and trade fairs, collecting many resources that the family could use. For example, those ancient artifacts for ancestral worship that have been passed down for hundreds of years have the power of incense that other cultivators cannot use. After buying them, they can be used to support the incense gods of the Li family for cultivation, and can also support more gods as the family's heritage. Although there will be a lot of loss in the transformation process, the effect is still huge. Although mortals can also produce faith incense, they are too weak and far inferior to the powerful cultivators. The stronger the cultivation, the purer the incense produced during the sacrifice, which can be said to be the best tonic for the incense gods. At the same time, within the beast taming sect, Li Quanqing also met many Gengjin cultivators under the introduction of Jinzhenpeng. Gengjin Zenren has a high status and a long lifespan. In most cases, there will be no conflicts. Everyone sits and discusses the truth, and harmony makes money. Li Quanqing is also quite wealthy, and he has exchanged a lot of good things, especially many that can help monsters break through in their cultivation. The most precious of them is undoubtedly a piece of Kyuan crystal, which is a natural treasure associated with some kind of den-forming spiritual creature, containing abundant life essence and would attribute spiritual power. After Li Quanqing got it in his hand, he fed it to the wooden peacock with the same attributes. The peacock monster has noble blood and great potential. It is one of the first few monsters to break through the foundation. Although it has awakened the 5-element peacock bloodline and wood is easy to produce fire, its foundation of cultivation is still based on wood. After refining the Kyuan crystal, it didn't take long to accumulate enough wooden peacocks, and successfully broke through the middle stage of foundation building, surpassing his former friends. Harvest a wooden peacock in the middle stage of foundation building, and reward the second level top grade spiritual artifact 100 Flowers Rejuvenation Map. 100 Flowers Rejuvenation Map, top grade spiritual artifact, can summon a 100 flowers barrier to defend the whole body, contains rejuvenation aura, can quickly recover from injuries, and has the ability to condense 100 flowers dew. It is more precious than the spiritual spring, and can help increase the probability of successful alchemy. Li Quanqing crushed the ball of light, and it suddenly turned into an enchanting spring picture with hundreds of flowers blooming. A scent of flowers filled the air, as if one was in the midst of spring. It is indeed a second grade top grade spiritual tool, with 3 functions, all of which are quite practical. What makes Li Quanqing most happy is that with this picture in hand, he can defend and heal, which is a great thing for Aoking. During this period of time, he also found out about the Xianlang Tower, and knew the rules of how to break into the tower. Those who can obtain the qualification to enter the tower are undoubtedly the high and mighty Gengjin Zenren. They have a lofty status and naturally will not fight to the death in front of many fellow cultivators. Moreover, if a real fire is fought, and any conflict arises, the beast taming sect will naturally lose more than it gains. Therefore, only the monsters themselves can enter the Xianlang Tower to seize their own fortune. In this way, even if something unexpected happens, and the beloved spirit beast is damaged, at least they will not tear their faces apart, causing a giant war and hatred between the sects. Moreover, the monster beasts can also use the magic weapon of their masters to break into the tower, which can be regarded as an alternative competition among many giant and Zenran, showing their magical powers. Of course, for the sake of fairness and justice, the 4th level spiritual treasures and talismans are prohibited from being used, and the power of the Yuanying realm will also cause damage to the Xianlang Tower itself. Li Quanqing released the green-horned fish dragon, and taught it how to control his most powerful magic weapon, the fish dragon spear, and also gave it the 100 Flowers rejuvenation map. Aoking was originally smart, and had a natural spiritual energy. The fish dragon spear was compatible with the attributes of the dragon family, so he easily mastered this top-grade magic weapon. Although the 100 Flowers rejuvenation map is a wood-attributed spiritual weapon, it is also easy to use. I saw hundreds of flowers blooming, colorful and red, like a gorgeous flower dress wrapped around the scales of the green dragon. In this way, 1 attack and 1 defense, and the rejuvenation aura can recover injuries. Compared with other spirit beasts, at least it will not be at a disadvantage in magic weapons. Days passed, and finally the day of the opening of the Xianlang Tower came. The majestic and cold wild mountain also had a hint of prosperity and bustle. Li Quanqing followed Gengjin Sword to Xianlang Peak. The sky was full of light, exploding like fireworks, brilliant like shooting stars. When he stepped onto the peak, he felt his body sink. The misty clouds around the mountain gathered, and turned into a cloud-patterned dragon with bared fangs and claws, guarding the 4 directions. Li Quanqing looked up. It was the first time he saw the most powerful and most noble nascent soul cultivators in this world of immortal cultivation. Chapter 280 Xianlang Tower. At the top of the mountain, auspicious clouds gathered, white as snow, floating like smoke, turning into a Taoist cloud bed, lying high in the 9th heaven. This was the first time Li Quanqing saw the top Yuanying engine in the world. Although there were only a few of them, they looked down on all living beings like gods. High above, one of them was like the rising sun, shrouded in blazing rays of light, burning with blazing flames, turning into a dragon wrapped around his body. This was the only cultivator Li Quanqing could recognize. It was obviously Xianlang's engine of the beast taming sect, with a high status. As for the other 2 Yuanying great cultivators shrouded in glory, he didn't recognize them. He just glanced at them, and quickly turned away, no longer paying attention. The 2 adults, one is Shan's engine of my sect, who controls the 4th level great monster Shan Bagua turtle. The other one is Taiyin's engine of the 4C sect, an extremely rare Kun cultivator, as cold as the moon, and unparalleled in his elegance. Gengjin Sword spoke in a low voice, and introduced him to avoid any mistakes. Sahai sect. When Li Quanqing heard this name, his heart skipped a beat, and he felt a little nervous. This name instantly reminded him of the ancient inheritances extending from the Xiandao, such as Zhenhe, Kanghe, and Bahai. As the base camp of the Xiandao, Donghe must have had many ancient cultivators who comprehended the inheritance and passed it down. For example, their King Gaiu Li family is obviously the descendant of one of the disciples of the Xiandao. Seeing that he looked different, Gengjin Sword did not think much about it and explained, Sahai sect has always been mysterious. Only the major Yuanying forces know its background. It is normal that fellow Daoist Li has never heard of it. But the strength of Sahai sect is undoubtedly the first sect in the East China Sea. Just talking about the 5 Yuanying's engine sitting in the open. Li Quanqing nodded repeatedly, and remembered the name of this sect in his heart. It seems that it is like the overlord of the East China Sea. He has a hunch that sooner or later, he will face Sahai sect, and it is still unclear whether they are enemies or friends. Li Quanqing followed Gengjin Sword to the top of Xianlang Peak, which had been set up as the venue for the Golden Elixir ceremony, which was particularly grand and lively. He sat quietly in his seat, chatting with other real friends from time to time, and quietly watched the entire Golden Elixir ceremony being held. In terms of the process alone, it was similar to the one held by the Li family before, but it was more grand. After all, there was a Yuanying great cultivator present, which could be called very luxurious. Finally, the ceremony came to its climax, because this new golden elixir cultivator was a disciple of Xianlong Gengjin. The beast control sect specially prepared to open the Xianlong Tower, and took this opportunity to make good friends. The auspicious time has arrived. Please master, please help and open the holy tower. At the top of the high platform, the newly broken golden elixir cultivator stood up proudly, spoke loudly, and saluted respectfully. Permitted. In the sky, Xianlong Gengjin's voice was like thunder, shaking the four directions, and he raised his hand to condense a seal, like a group of dragons circling and winding, falling towards the Xianlong peak below. There was a rumbling sound all around, huge rocks rolled down, the entire mountain cracked, and a towering iron tower emerged from it, majestic and magnificent. On the tower body, there were many images of giant dragon beasts, with Swanee roaring, Bayan hitting the air, and Chilung circling, and ancient demon dragons suppressing the four directions. Almost all dragon demon beasts from ancient times to the present can find corresponding traces from it, and thick dragon energy intertwined, blocking the void like a chain. Li Quanqing counted, and found that there were a total of 12 floors of the tower body, and there was a gem sitting at the highest point. The inside of the bead seemed to have opened up a world of dragons and snakes, wild and ancient. Huolala. With the sound of the chain crossing the sky, a door quietly opened at the bottom of the Xianlong Tower, surging with endless light. All selected people, quickly let the spirit beasts in. Li Quanqing heard the shout and immediately released Aoking from the magic weapon. He was thinking about whether he could send the dragon flame eagle in as well, to get some dragon energy, but unfortunately it was impossible, because the Yuanying's engine was watching from above. Moo. Aoking roared, and rushed up with his fangs and claws bared. His two front paws were tightly grasping the fish dragon spear in the 100 Flowers rejuvenation picture, and his body was filled with strong demonic energy. What a dragon monster! Jinyoung Xiao's eyes lit up when he saw the green-horned fish dragon. He was proficient in the inheritance of the beast taming sect, and could naturally see the potential of a demon beast. Aoking had rarely taken drugs in his practice until now. He had only absorbed the moonlight of the moon to practice. He really had an excellent bone structure, and his demonic energy was extremely pure and his foundation was deep. In addition, there were 20 to 30 demon beasts that also drilled into the tower. They were of different shapes and all had dragon blood flowing in their bodies. As they drilled into the Xianlong Tower, the light gate closed automatically. Then, the first floor of the tower gradually became transparent, allowing the cultivators from the outside world to peek into the scene inside. The Xianlong Tower is indeed a spiritual treasure of the sect. In terms of the vastness of the space, it can be called a treasure of the cave. Each layer of the tower represents a small space, which is far more vast and boundless than the current Hanhei Bowl. Li Quanqing looked closely and saw the endless ocean sweeping in the tower, just like hiding a vast sea, raising huge waves every moment. When the spirit beasts fall into it, they not only need to fight with the waves, but also in the sky above their heads. There are lightning flashes all over the sky, one after another, and there is no limit to the power. In terms of power alone, each of these heavenly thunders is no less than a blow from a cultivator in the early stage of foundation building. Only by successfully going through this ordeal and experience can the monsters be qualified to obtain the Dragon Gate Aura initiation, and continue to the next layer of the tower. Li Quanqing stared at Aoking. For the green-horned fish dragon, this initial tempering was not strong, but it took only half an hour to successfully pass the level. A wisp of dragon energy descended from the sky, golden and dazzling, surrounded by colorful clouds, which looked quite extraordinary. This was the dragon energy bred from the fragments of the Dragon Gate, and with the cultivation of countless natural treasures of the beast taming sect, it can definitely make the dragon blood monster undergo a complete transformation. Aoking easily passed the first level, and arrived at a desert world. The sun was scorching, and the endless sand and gravel spread to the end of the world. The tempering of the Xianlong Tower is to gradually become stronger, which can be regarded as a manifestation of potential. Next to him, Jinyoung Xiao said leisurely, after passing the first 4 levels, becoming a golden elixir is a sure thing. If you pass the first 8 levels, it means that you have the foundation of the nascent soul. Li Quanqing looked up at the tower. If all 12 floors of the tower are passed, it means that you have the posture of a god. Fortunately, the beast taming sect has also considered this situation. From the 7th floor, the scene in the tower is no longer displayed, and only a few nascent soul true lords can peek. Li Quanqing was originally afraid that Aoking's performance was too dazzling and would attract the attention of those who were interested. Later, he realized that he was just overthinking. Although the green-horned fish dragon was strong, the performance of other monsters was not inferior to it. They were all powerful spirit beasts carefully selected by the Gengjin cultivators, with noble bloodlines and rare magic weapons. For example, the disciple of Xianlong Gengjin, his monster was a giant turtle with a dragon-like head and 4 claws-like pillars. Obviously, this spirit beast has the bloodline of Longzibazar, and it is extremely pure. Including Aoking, there were a total of 8 monsters that broke into the 7th floor of the tower and disappeared from everyone's sight. They have great potential. The 3rd level monster is stable. Li Quanqing was relieved when he saw this scene. After 6 baptisms of dragon energy, Aoking already has enough foundation to break through the bottleneck of Gengjin. As for breaking through the higher floors of the tower, it is just icing on the cake. Chapter 281 Nascent Soul Potential. Above the Xianlong Peak, a towering iron tower stood, surrounded by clouds and mist, and looked majestic. One by one, the Gengjin Zenran sat in all directions, looking at the monsters struggling in the tower, with different expressions. In the end, 8 dragon blood monsters broke into the 7th floor, and disappeared from sight, and could no longer be seen. Aoking was also one of them, fighting in the wind and waves, and finally jumped up, and drilled into the clouds. It's enough. Li Quanqing relaxed slightly in his heart, retracted his gaze, no longer paid attention, and talked and laughed with Jinyang Xiao again. The 3 Yuanying Zenjin sat cross-legged in the clouds, overlooking the towering Xianlong Tower, but they easily saw through the scene on the 7th floor. They were naturally qualified to witness the birth of the final winner. I didn't expect that this time, when the Xianlong Tower was opened, there were many good seedlings. Xianlong Zenjin was shrouded in the glory of the sun, sacred and brilliant, and a ray of divine consciousness escaped, magnificent and vast. He looked at the dragon turtle, which was the battle pet of his Gengjin disciple. It had the blood of Longzibazar, and was extremely powerful. Beside him, Shan Zenjin also smiled slightly. The only one who can pass the 9th level, and has the potential of Yuanying, is this dragon turtle. Xianlongzi, you really have a good disciple. Taiyuan Zenjin of Sihei sect was shrouded in the hazy moonlight. She was a rare female cultivator with a cold face and peerless elegance. She glanced at the 2 old guys of the beast taming sect, and always felt that there was something fishy. You must know that Shan Zenjin's battle pet is the Yuanying demon beast Shan Bagua turtle, which controls the turtle spirit lineage. This dragon turtle looks like something he and Xianlong Zenjin made. The identity of this disciple is probably not simple. However, Taiyuan Zenjin is not interested in these twists and turns. Sihei sect inherited the legacy of Xiandao. At the beginning of its birth, it was destined to dominate the entire East China Sea and restore the glory of the ancient cultivators. She looked at Li Quanqing, who was mixed in the crowd. She had a good impression of this descendant of Xiandao who was wandering outside. Another half a month passed. The monsters that entered the tower stopped one by one, reaching their own limits, and could no longer move forward. In the end, except for the dragon turtle, only Aoking was left, who passed the 9th floor. With his strong bones and will, he was successfully recognized by the Xianlong Tower as having the potential of the nascent soul. Seeing this scene, the 3 Yuanying Zenjins all raised their eyebrows and looked at each other in a strange way. Whose monster is this? It's so brave. Xiangui Zenjin's eyes flashed with strange light, and he scanned the many Gengjin Zenran below. There are not many monsters with the potential of the nascent soul, even in the beast taming sect, and they can be cultivated as true disciples. It's a friend brought by my Jin family's descendant. It seems to be a casual cultivator from a remote sea area. I didn't expect it. Xianlong Zenjin sighed. He was in charge of the Xianlong Tower, so he naturally knew the identities and origins of all the monster owners. He pointed out Li Quanqing's position to the two Taoist friends. Although he was surprised, he did not make any more moves. The potential of the nascent soul is only a means of assessment for the beast taming sect. Whether one can truly break through to the 4th level monster beast depends on one's own luck. The beast taming sect has 20 to 30 such monster beasts, but only a few can finally break through. The tower is over. Start. Qianlong Zhenjin spoke majestically, forming seals with his hands and casting a seal. Suddenly, the Qianlong tower rumbled, slowly opened a gap, and invisible magic power bloomed out, including Li Quanqing. All the masters of the monster beasts who broke through the tower were forced to fly up and eventually disappeared in the ancient tower. After the dazzling light dissipated, Li Quanqing suddenly found himself in a wide space, surrounded by surging dragon energy, like a dark yellow flow. King. He looked up and immediately saw the green-horned fish dragon with its eyes closed, curled up, and the demonic energy around it was surging, as if it had turned into a dragon egg floating there. Obviously, this guy has gained a lot of benefits. Although his cultivation has not improved much, his bloodline has evolved several levels under the nourishment of the fragments of the ancient dragon gate. Li Quanqing took out the Hanhei bowl and carefully put the transformed King into it, looking forward to the day when it wakes up. I'm Rulong below. I have met this Taoist friend. What is his name? A man with a dignified appearance strode over with a smile on his face. Behind him followed a yellowish-brown dragon turtle, which was as heavy as a mountain, majestic and sacred. Master Hanhei, Li Quanqing. Li Quanqing did not dare to neglect him and also bowed, neither humble nor arrogant. He knew this person. He was the disciple of Master Qianlong, who had a high status. The opening of the Qianlong Tower this time was to celebrate this guy's successful formation of the elixir. In a sense, he still took advantage of it. Dao Aoli is so young, but he has such a cultivation level now. In the future, you will definitely have a place in the East China Sea cultivation world. Fang Rulong smiled and started chatting. His words were full of pride, which made people feel like spring breeze. Obviously, he had received instructions from his master and knew the final result of the monster's entry into the tower, so he came here to make friends. Li Quanqing also guessed something and was happy about it. He had a cordial conversation with the other party and flew out of the Qianlong Tower together. When Jin Yongxiu saw this scene, he also seemed to have realized something and noticed something. The conference ended successfully, and Li Quanqing was not in a hurry to go back, but stayed for a while, waiting for King to wake up. The foundation of the green-horned fish dragon is still too shallow. Like the dragon turtle, it also broke into the 9th floor and experienced 9 baptisms of dragon energy. It is still alive and kicking, and there is no need to fall into a deep sleep to digest this power. Li Quanqing observed every day, and King's changes were indeed not small. The characteristics of fish on his body almost completely disappeared, and he really transformed into a dragon-like monster. Finally, 3 months later, the green-horned fish dragon finally woke up successfully, and its blood evolved into a brand new species. Moo. A dragon roar resounded through the sky, and King's body circled, slender and agile, covered with a layer of fine green dragon scales, like polished jade, shining with a mysterious luster. These scales are closely connected, each of which presents a perfect arc, with sharp edges, as if it can easily cut through any object. Its dragon head is raised high, its forehead is wide and full, and there are faint green lines on it, like mysterious runes. These runes interweave and turn into a huge and bright green moon, emitting a majestic and cold light, shining in all directions. King stretched out 4 claws, which were thick and powerful, sharp as hooks. Under the moonlight, the 2 dragon horns on its head became brighter, emitting a mysterious light, crystal clear. Compared with the ferocious and wild nature of the green-horned ichthyosaur, with a mouth full of cold fangs, King at this time undoubtedly gave birth to a sense of holiness, brilliant as the moon. I want to turn into a dragon. King Iuqiu. I feel that I'm now so powerful. Any difficulties will be shattered in front of me. I'm the real dragon. King. Cultivation. Great perfection of foundation establishment. 99%. Chapter 282 King Dan. Li Quanqing touched the cool scales on King's body, with satisfaction in his eyes. This guy really has not changed his original intention. King Iuqiu. There are many records of the so-called Qianlong in ancient books, and the most popular one is, a hornless dragon is called a Kai, and a horn is called a Qiu. Qianlong can be regarded as the juvenile form of a real dragon. It is a small dragon with 2 horns. It is a real dragon monster with noble and amazing blood. Li Quanqing looked at this guy and immediately found many differences. After the Qingyu carp evolved into the Qingjiao fish dragon, there were still many fish forms on its body, such as fish fins under its abdomen instead of the limbs of a dragon. Moreover, the Qingjiao fish dragon only had a spiral horn on its forehead, a mouth full of fangs, and a ferocious face, without the feeling of majesty and sacredness. Qingyu Qiu is different. It truly possesses the pressure of the dragon clan, like a round of blue moon hanging high in the sky, flowing with holy glory. King stretched his body to his heart's content. His eyes were bright, like the vertical pupils of snakes, and the two dragon horns on his forehead extended like the undulating roots of a tree, crystal clear like jade, with golden threads interwoven inside. Li Quanqing was quite satisfied with what he saw. Although Qingyu Qiu's cultivation was still at the foundation building stage, it was certain that he would break through the third stage. King had revived, so he naturally didn't have to stay in the beast control sect anymore. After saying goodbye to a few friends, he left on his own. Nascent Soul Sect. Li Quanqing looked back and looked at the towering savage divine mountain and also felt a huge gap. His background was still too low. This time he came to the beast control sect and he gained a lot. He really saw the huge gap between the golden core and nascent soul forces. This was the overlord who truly dominated the world of immortal cultivation. With a lifespan of 1,000 years, he could overlook the changes in the world and watch the ebb and flow of the East China Sea with a smile. The road ahead is long and arduous. Li Quanqing retracted his gaze, patted the green jade dragon under him, and turned into a green light, and disappeared into the waves. On the way, he asked King about the situation inside the Xianlang Tower. It was indeed as vast as the secret realm of the cave. Unfortunately, King finally stopped at the 9th floor and never saw the fragment of the ancient dragon gate. He only received 9 baptisms of dragon energy. The foundation of the beast taming sect is still powerful and unpredictable. On the way home, Li Quanqing let King play in the seawater. After all, this guy performed well and deserved a reward. Everything went smoothly on the way back, and no accidents happened. Li Quanqing put the Qingyu Qiu into the bowl and quietly returned to the Qingyu cave heaven without alarming too many people. More than half a year later, driven by the bloodline, King finally broke through the last level and began to move towards the 3rd level monster. It must be said that the monster clan is really blessed by nature. As long as the bloodline is strong enough, the bottleneck is ignored, and even too many resources are not needed. Li Quanqing and Li Kunlun stood on the shore, looking at the blue moon hovering in the depths of Yulangtan. The spiritual energy in the sky gathered and turned into a spiritual tide that surged in all directions. The rich green light bloomed and turned into a dazzling moon, rising slowly, sacred and cold, as if carrying the power to freeze the soul. Rumble. Above the sky, there were already calamity clouds gathering, a dark mass, and dazzling thunder bloomed, bursting out. Golden Core Demon. Li Kunlun exhaled a breath of turbid air and glanced at Li Quanqing beside him. Could he really be the innate beast controlling holy body? Crackling. After the thunder brewed to the extreme, it finally struck down one after another. The thunder light was brilliant, shining in all directions, and the power of heaven was incomparable. King struggled in the thunder tribulation, roaring to the sky, using his own dragon body to resist the heavenly tribulation, swallowing and exhaling the essence of heaven and earth, refining thunder and practicing. At this moment, all the foundation building cultivators of the Li family noticed this movement and faced the golden core thunder tribulation and even became somewhat accustomed to it. After an unknown amount of time, the lightning in the sky finally dissipated. With just a little residual power, most of the water in the Jade Dragon Pond evaporated, and the group of Jade Carps trembled. Moo. With a happy roar, the Blue Moon Dragon jumped up from the calamity cloud. Its scales charred and fell off, revealing the more brilliant and crystal blue dragon scales underneath. King opened his mouth and spit out a crystal clear dragon bead like glass. The brilliance was blazing, swallowing up the thunder in the sky, and it was very happy. At this moment, it finally broke through the bottleneck and shackles, and experienced the baptism of thunder tribulation, and truly became a golden elixir monster. Strands of white airflow drilled out from the scales, gathered like silk threads, and turned into a shining ball of light, which was even more eye-catching than the dragon bead. Harvest a blue moon dragon in the early stage of the golden elixir, and reward a Yuan Yingling Bao dragon pool. Dragon transformation pond, a 4th level lower grade spiritual treasure, a treasure refined by ancient cultivators imitating the dragon gate of heaven and earth. When fish and monsters bathe in the pool, they can stimulate the dragon bloodline in their bodies and evolve their race. Li Quanqing touched the light ball with his consciousness, and words suddenly appeared in front of his eyes. Even with his temperament, he was a little shocked at this time. His pupils trembled, and even his hand shook a few times. 4th level, nascent soul spiritual treasure. Obviously, this will be the most amazing weapon refining reward he has ever received since his cultivation. Although according to the introduction, it is not an offensive spiritual treasure, but more of an auxiliary role, it is of great significance to him. With the dragon transformation pond, those golden patterned green jade carps can finally evolve their bloodline collectively, break through to the foundation building, and generate a large number of rare rewards. Moo. After Aoking consumed all the thunder in the sky, he immediately held the dragon ball in his mouth and went back into the depths of the pool to practice in seclusion. Li Quanqing was not in a hurry and waited until the evening, when the night fell and the bright moon was hanging high. The blue moon dragon really came out again, raised its head, and swallowed the moonlight to practice. The hazy moonlight was refined by it, like silken mist, and drilled into the flesh and blood along the scales. Below, countless green jade carps gathered, and the water was sparkling. Even the other green-horned fish dragon was also submissive, which was quite spectacular. Li Quanqing grabbed the ball of light in his hand, came to the embankment and sat down, and crushed it hard, revealing a square small pool. The dragon transformation pool does not look very big. It seems to be made of grey stones, and carved with ancient dragon-shaped patterns. It is magnificent. The pool water is as red as blood. There is a unique fragrance in the surging water, which makes people's blood boil, as if it is about to burn. Li Quanqing pondered for a moment, reached out and grabbed a big black fish, and threw it directly into the pool. This dragon transformation pool obviously also has spatial attributes. The big black fish kept shrinking in size during the fall, and then turned into a grain of dust, and fell into the pool. Unexpectedly, the moment this big black fish fell into the water, it was corroded into a pool of blood, and no bones were left. What a domineering power! Li Quanqing exclaimed. This is the way to turn into a dragon. If you fail, you will die. If you can't fight to cross out of the pool, you can only use your life as a price, and become the food for those who come later. For a moment, even Li Quanqing was a little silent. In the end, he still sighed lightly, and reached out to grab a golden jade carp in his hand. It was Aogao who was in the state of great perfection of key refining. This guy stared at him innocently with a pair of dead fish eyes, and kept spitting bubbles from his mouth. It was not clear what he would face next. Go in. Li Quanqing swung his palm, and with a splash, he threw the jade carp directly into the dragon pool, splashing a blood-colored wave. Moo. The moment Aogao fell into the red blood, he let out a miserable roar, as if he had been cut into pieces, and fell into a boiling oil pan. The domineering water of the dragon pool was really frightening. Fortunately, Aogao finally managed to hold on. With a loud dragon roar, he successfully evolved into a green-horned firesaur, and jumped out of the pool. Chapter 283 Shianai Pill. Moo. In the dragon transformation pool, the blood-red water was boiling, and Aogao's body struggled in it, as if he had been baptized, and finally jumped out of the pool. In the air, after jumping out of the pool, its body became increasingly slender, its scales were bright, and its body expanded, and finally it successfully evolved into a green-horned fish dragon. But the changes did not stop there. With the evolution of Aogao's bloodline, the bottleneck of foundation building was also broken, and it began to transform into a second-level monster. Harvest a green-horned fish dragon in the early stage of foundation building, and reward the Shianai pill recipe. Shianai pill, a special third-level pill, made of Shianai spirit liquid as the main material, refined into a pill, and 100 pills can be equivalent to the effect of a drop of Shianai true water. In the end, Ao Gao successfully broke through, evolved into a brand new monster bloodline, and successfully broke through. Li Quanqing touched the light ball with his palm, and his eyebrows were raised slightly. He actually offered such a reward. With his current giant and cultivation, the effect of Shyanai spiritual liquid has been much weaker, and the real 7 true waters are hard to find. This Shyanai pill is very suitable for his cultivation. Li Quanqing threw Ao Gao into the Yulong pond and grabbed a golden veined green jade carp from the fish pond, which also had the cultivation of key refining great perfection, and threw it into the Hualong pond. Unfortunately, this green jade carp failed. It could not withstand the powerful force contained in the blood and water, and exploded and died, turning into nutrients for the pool water. It's really cruel. Li Quanqing stroked the grey stone pool, and couldn't help but be amazed. The process of the monster breaking the shackles of the bloodline was indeed cruel and bloody. Fortunately, after so many years of cultivation, there are enough golden veined green jade carps in the fish pond, and many of them have reached the great perfection of key refining. Li Quanqing was not anxious, but carefully selected them, and used his own magic power to baptize their bones to avoid unnecessary casualties. Finally, 2 more green-horned fish dragons at the foundation establishment stage were created, and they successfully broke through, setting off waves of roars of joy in the fish pond. Harvest a green-horned fish dragon at the initial stage of foundation establishment, and reward a bottle of Shyanai spiritual liquid. Right square bracket asterisk. 2 Li Quanqing crushed the ball of light and successfully turned it into 2 big-bellied bottles, which were like white jade, shaking and clattering, as if the roar of the sea was echoing here. He discovered that these green-horned fish dragons that had successfully broken through had previously refined the dragon and snake true evil, laying a good foundation. This is how they were able to successfully transform in the water of the dragon transformation pond. Moo. Between the clouds, the green moon dragon was circling, emitting a hazy green light all over its body, blooming like a moon halo. Ao King leaned down and passed over the entire fish pond, very happy to see that he had 3 more second level monster brothers. It waved its hand and summoned a cloud, which mixed with pure demonic energy and fell down, dripping and nourishing many jade carps. Thousands of big carps competed to jump in the rain. This was the demonic energy of the golden elixir demon, which had an incomparable attraction to them. I hope there will be a few more good seedlings. Li Quanqing exhaled a breath of turbid air. The 3 green-horned fish dragons were all the foundation he had accumulated in the fish pond for decades. However, there were also many jade carps that were confined to the limit of refining energy among the guardian spirit beasts, and they could also be taken to the dragon transformation pool. The only thing to worry about was that the effect of the pool water was too strong, which would cause the death of many jade carps. He glanced at Ao King. The news that this guy broke through the 3rd level was naturally blocked by the family. Only a few people knew about it, and it was regarded as a trump card. Li Quanqing held the dragon transformation pool and walked into the Hanhei bowl, carefully refining it with magic power. This was the first nascent soul spirit treasure in his life. He felt that it was extremely powerful and possessed unimaginable power. On the surface of the grey stone pool, there were lines of artifacts engraved, like dragon and snake lines entwined, like Dao marks, interpreting the secret of the way of dragon transformation. Li Quanqing had a feeling that his 3rd level weapon refining technique might fall into this dragon transformation pool. Cry. The volcanic magma was rolling, and a phoenix tree took root in it, with cracked bark, as if an old dragon was entrenched in the hot lava. The dragon flame eagle was entrenched on this tree. When it noticed the arrival of its master, it immediately opened its eyes, like a golden red lightning exploding here, and the fine light illuminated all around. Almost immediately, the dragon flame eagle noticed the existence of the dragon transformation pool, and was attracted by the breath. It couldn't help flapping its wings, stretching its neck and calling out, with a certain desire in its call, and its expression was eager to try. Come, go in and take a bath. Li Quanqing smiled slightly, not stingy, or he came for this guy. He raised the square stone pool, and the dragon flame eagle could not wait, flapping its wings and heading inside. Li Quanqing observed carefully with his spiritual sense, and found that the moment a creature touched the dragon pool, many instrument patterns and Dao marks would be triggered. an unpredictable force burst out, and the void patterns intertwined, directly swallowing the huge dragon flame eagle into it, turning into dust and falling. The 4th level refining method is really amazing. Li Quanqing's eyes were full of admiration. With his 2nd level peak refining cultivation, he actually felt that even a little bit of fur was unfathomable. Whether it was alchemy or refining, at the 4th level, it was infinitely close to the limit of the world of cultivation. As for the 5th level cultivation of the 100 arts, it was even rarer than the divine transformation cultivator, and it could truly be called the master of the Dao. The dragon flame eagle bathed in the dragon transformation pool, stretching its body to its heart's content, with blood red water waves rolling down its wings. With its strength, it would not explode and die, and it absorbed the majestic energy contained in it. In this process, the dragon flame eagle's body continued to transform, just like a python shedding its skin. Shedding layers of feathers and scales, the originally huge body actually shrank a lot, becoming more solid, and the feathers were awe-inspiring, like a ball of fire burning there. The head of the dragon flame eagle was completely transformed into a giant-long beast, mighty and domineering, and a deafening roar came from its throat. Unfortunately, this guy still failed to break the shackles of the 3rd level bloodline, and was only heading towards the great perfection of the foundation building. After all, it's only a 4th level low grade, the weakest among the spiritual treasures, and the effect ends here. Li Quanqing held the dragon transformation pool, and kept pouring his own magic power into it. He noticed that after the dragon flame eagle bathed, even the blood red pool water became a little shallow. Perhaps, only a true nascent soul cultivator can fully activate the power of this 4th level spiritual treasure. Li Quanqing couldn't help but think of the Xianlong Tower of the Beast Taming Sect. Being able to create so many 3rd level monsters, this divine tower may have already reached the 5th level, and its power is vast. Cry. The dragon flame eagle flew out of the pool, flapping its wings, clanging like a sword, and making waves of unwilling roars. Kai. Above the sky, the void butterfly made a dissatisfied sound, as if it was disturbed by it, and looked over here. It gently flapped its butterfly wings, and the silver-white void power bloomed, instantly distorting the space, throwing the dragon flame eagle into the depths of the magma to calm down. Space teleport. Li Quanqing's eyes lit up. Although it only lasted less than a kilometer, he could still see the terrifying power of this ability. The void beast race is far more powerful and terrifying than he imagined. Li Quanqing came to sit in front of the void butterfly and practiced the heart contract with it again. 2 rune marks appeared on his forehead and the butterfly beast's forehead at the same time. The void butterfly looked at him with its big silver white eyes, but in the end it did not refuse. It honestly floated in the sky and absorbed the power of the vast sea cave heaven to practice. Only the dragon flame eagle was left fluttering in the volcano, helpless and furious, and finally had to beat the golden flame tiger for no reason to vent his anger. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 284, Middle Giant and Stage. Xianai Pill. After practicing, Li Quanqing began to study this 3rd level pill recipe. He crushed the ball of light, and suddenly a lot of alchemy experience emerged. He absorbed it with his spiritual consciousness, and turned it into knowledge he mastered. Li Quanqing had already stepped into the threshold of a 3rd level alchemist, and the process of refining Xianai pill was not difficult, so he successfully mastered it. In addition to Xianai spiritual liquid, there are many common natural treasures, all of which are water attributed, and not difficult to collect. Li Quanqing spent 3 days issuing many tasks within the family and successfully collected many spiritual medicines and spiritual materials. As the patriarch, a large part of his annual salary was replaced by family contribution points. Li Quanqing sat cross-legged in front of the alchemy furnace, took out a dozen drops of Xianai spiritual liquid, mixed it with many natural treasures, and put it into the furnace. The only thing to pay attention to when refining this kind of pure water attributed pill is that it cannot be exposed to fire. In other words, use your own golden elixir mana instead of fire to refine the pill. The sea power has the characteristics of harmony. The refining process of Xianai pill seems to be specially prepared for the alchemists who practice the Xiandao inheritance. In a sense, this can also be regarded as a unique water method of alchemy. Li Quanqing exerted his magic power, like the blue sea water, flowing out of the meridians, crushing many natural treasures. In this process, a few drops of Xianai spiritual liquid shone like gems, gradually blending with the magic power and condensing into the shape of pills under the action of the water flow. 10 days later, Li Quanqing finally succeeded in condensing the pills and harvested 2 sea blue pills with deep color and light golden pill patterns on the surface. The medicinal effect contained is comparable to 1/100th of a drop of Xianai true water. Li Quanqing picked up a pill and immediately realized the majestic power contained in it, which was as boundless as the ocean. As the first of the 7 true waters, Xianai true water is relatively the most common and the most mediocre. It is not as heavy as the one yuan heavy water, nor as pure and nourishing as the Taiyin true water, nor does it have the terrible power to freeze everything like the Zuanming true water. The characteristics of Xianai true water represent the boundlessness of the way of water, as vast and majestic as the sea, and possess the power to embrace everything. From this pill, Li Quanqing also felt that characteristic, as if it was resonating with his own blue sea magic power. Li Quanqing did not hesitate, and swallowed the Xianai pill directly into his mouth. Unexpectedly, this pill did not melt in his mouth, but fell all the way, like it was filled with lead. Finally, it fell directly into his danshan. Crash. The sea blue pill was suspended above the magic golden pill he cultivated, making waves of tsunamis. Immediately afterwards, waves of pure medicinal power were released from the Xianai pill, as if it was endless, like a great river. The golden pill was spinning, and it was completely unrejected to this power, absorbing and refining it to its heart's content. These medicinal powers were refined by the golden elixir and dispersed to the limbs and bones. Finally, after being transported by the great circulation, they turned into superior magic power and returned to the danshan. Unlike the poison of ordinary elixirs, perhaps because no true fire was used in the refining process, the medicinal properties of Xianai Dan were pure and amazing. 3 full months passed. This elixir was truly completely refined by someone, leaving only the last bit of dregs, which disappeared with the breath. Li Quanqing had never experienced that practicing could be said to be such a wonderful thing, and he was a little addicted to it. He couldn't help but start to imagine that, if one day he found the real Xianai true water to assist in practicing, how amazing that scene would be. I'm afraid even the realm of transformation would be within reach. There is no time in practicing. When you reach the level of Jiandan Zenren, time really flies by like a white horse passing by. In the blink of an eye, 20 years have passed. For ordinary people, this is the prime of life, enough for children to become the head of a family, and for young girls who have just become mothers, to welcome their 3 generations living together. But for Li Quanqing, it was like a breeze blowing on his face, leaving no trace on his body. He still sat cross-legged on the embankment, raising fish and practicing day after day, dancing with thousands of spirit fish, and was more motionless than the longevity turtle. Moo. Between Li Quanqing's palms, accompanied by a clear dragon roar, a green-horned fish dragon leaped out, riding the rain and fog to the sky happily. The 8th one. His eyes moved slightly, looking at the light bowl condensed on the forehead of this 2nd-level monster. His face showed no sadness or joy. Over the years, he caught all the green jade carps in the entire Yulangton, exhausting the Li family's hundreds of years of heritage. Finally, he got 8 green-horned fish dragons in the foundation building realm, pushing the family's hidden strength forward a lot. The green-horned fish dragon, that had been guarding the family for hundreds of years, also took a trip in the dragon transformation pool and successfully reached the great perfection of foundation establishment. If Ao King's Green Moon Dragon is added, there will be a total of 9 foundation builders, plus a golden core monster beast. It is completely equivalent to creating another golden core family. It is terrifying. But in contrast, there are those key refining monster beasts in the Hanhei Bowl. None of them broke through the foundation building realm, and it can only be said that their potential has been exhausted. There are 2 who broke through to the middle stage of foundation building, and they are Bao Guangchen and Yulin Beast. Among them, Li Quanqing rewarded a 3rd level talisman golden toad brick, which can be used to hit people secretly, and is prepared to leave it to his own disciple Li Jingui for self-defense, after breaking through the foundation building. When Yulin Beast broke through the middle stage of foundation building, it was rewarded with a quasi 3rd level geomancer inheritance. It can also be called a Feng Shui Master, a geomancer, who can survey the trends of mountain and sea veins and island mineral deposits. Li Quanqing handed over this inheritance of geomancer to the Sutra repository, and Li Zongsuo was the leader. After learning with a try-and-see attitude, he traveled to many sea areas of the family. Unexpectedly, he actually found 2 spiritual stone veins, one located on a deserted island, and the other was a spiritual stone mine deep under the sea, which was very difficult to mine. Even so, it still greatly alleviated the family's financial problems. After all, the original spiritual stone mines in this tens of thousands of miles of sea area belonged to the Shuhua sword sect. Even if the Li family put pressure on him later, the sword sect only gave him a few spiritual stone veins that were about to be mined. It was really a pity to abandon them. If it weren't for the pressure from the Xingqian sect, Li Quanqing would have gone to the door and destroyed the Shuhua sword sect. As for those blue-horned fish dragons that broke through, without exception, they were awarded with Shianai spiritual liquid. Li Quanqing took Shianai pill for 20 years, and finally accumulated his cultivation to a bottleneck, and felt that thick barrier. He reached the peak of the early stage of the golden pill. This green-horned fish dragon, the reward should also be spiritual liquid. Li Quanqing looked at the green fish dragon puffing up clouds and spitting out mist above the fish pond without much expectation, and picked up the ball of light in his hand. Harvest a green-horned fish dragon in the early stage of foundation building and reward a large spiritual energy ball. Ha! Exclamation mark. Li Quanqing exclaimed in his heart, thinking it was really strange. It has been a long time since he saw a large spiritual energy ball reward. He did not hesitate and crushed the ball of light directly. White light spots flew all over the sky, turning into pure spiritual energy of heaven and earth, appearing in his meridians. These spiritual energies condensed and did not disperse, just like a white jade bead. With the practice of the technique, it was refined bit by bit. In terms of the abundance of energy contained, this large spiritual energy ball is about the same as 3 or 4 Shianai pills. But in it contains an invisible special power, as if it can weaken its own bottleneck and assist in breakthrough. This feeling is not unfamiliar to Li Quanqing. As early as when he was refining Qi and building his foundation, he had relied on the power of large spiritual energy groups to break through his own realm several times. This time was no exception. He launched a blatant attack towards the bottleneck of the middle stage of the golden elixir. Boom. 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 Li Quanqing sat cross-legged on the dam, keeping his mind focused, manipulating the golden elixir's magic power to circulate throughout his body, and the magic power swept like an ocean. The essence of heaven and earth within a radius of 1,000 miles swarmed in, as if being grasped by an invisible big hand, turning into a spiritual tide that enveloped the entire Yulangtan. Ao King, who had already broken through the 3rd level, was also attracted by this movement, and took the initiative to help with the essence in the pond. The dragon was born to be able to control the water veins. For it, mobilizing the spiritual energy of the water veins is almost instinctive. Li Quanqing was in the eye of the tide, swallowing and exhaling the essence of the sky, and turned from the 7 orifices into a white gas snake to drill around, and his whole body seemed to be emitting a glow. Endless waves rushed up to the sky, turning into a fierce water flow that enveloped him, setting off the ground like the resurrection of the ancient water god, and the ocean was surging endlessly. With the help of his own spiritual energy and the external tide, Li Quanqing successfully broke through that bottleneck. With a click in his ears, layers of magic power whizzed past, hitting Huanglong, as if chasing him forever. After more than half a decade of breaking through the Jiandan stage, after more than 30 years of hard practice, he finally reached this new realm. The middle stage of Jiandan. Chapter 285 Swallowing the World. Li Quanqing successfully broke through the middle stage of the golden core, and his majestic aura soared into the sky, actually directly dispersing the spiritual tide that was gathering. The world was clear. This aura swept in all directions, and the pressure was pervasive, directly spreading to a small half of the Qingyu cave heaven, causing countless clansmen to worship. Li Quanqing opened his eyes. His eyes were as bright as two small water blue suns. The light was so blazing that it was difficult to look directly at, and his robes rustled. He waved his sleeves, dispersing the majestic pressure from the sky, leaving only a spiritual rain that drizzled, nourishing the essence of the cave heaven. Moo. The water of Yulangtan was rippling, and Aoking flew directly out of it, with his teeth and claws bared, flying towards this side to congratulate his master. It displayed the magical power of size, turning into a huge man of several feet, appearing more and more exquisite, just as warm as the jade statue, with an uplifted posture. Aoking landed on the embankment, and could not wait to rub his big head against Li Quanqing, with an eager expression and bright eyes. It was as if he was taking credit for the fact that he had gathered the essence of the water veins to help him. Li Quanqing found it funny, and touched its two delicate dragon horns, which were as pure as jade glass and felt good. After playing around, he took out 2 Shyanai pills from the jade bottle as a reward. Moo. Aoking hovered, and when he saw this water blue pill, he was immediately dissatisfied, and opened his mouth and screamed. You have eaten up all the Taiyan spiritual liquid, so let's make do with it for now. Li Quanqing took out a bottle filled with moon yellow Taiyan spiritual liquid, with only a shallow layer left at the bottom. This kind of spiritual liquid can only be produced by the moon pattern rabbit, which is precious and rare. With the same attribute of the moon, the bright moon shell may also be able to breed this kind of light ball reward, but it is a pity that it is too disappointing, and has never produced a spiritual shell that can break through the foundation. Moreover, neither of them is of dragon python bloodline, and they cannot use the dragon transformation pool, so the probability of breaking through the shackles of race is slim. Li Quanqing had planned before, and was ready to go to the Z family on Baosu Island, to get a few descendants of 1,000-year-old spirit shells. Now it can be put on the agenda. Moo. Helplessly, Aoking had to open his mouth wide and swallow the Shyanai pill into his stomach, feeling the majestic water essence washing over his body, and squinting his eyes comfortably. Li Quanqing shook the Taiyan spirit liquid, and suddenly had a sudden thought, whether he could imitate the Shyanai pill, and refine this spiritual liquid into a special Taiyan pill. After all, the two are derivatives of the 7 true waters, and their properties are quite similar, so it is entirely possible. Not only that, he also has the heavy water spiritual liquid that was rewarded when the Kanghe whale broke through the middle stage of foundation building, which can also be used to transform the pill. Li Quanqing took out a stone bottle, which contained the heavy water spiritual liquid, which was as viscous as ink, and a drop of spiritual liquid was heavier than a lake. Before, he had used the heavy water spirit liquid to cultivate the body of the Kanghe whale king. After consuming it, there was still a small half bottle left, which could be used now. Do it as soon as you think of it. Adapt to the mana cultivation of the middle stage of the golden elixir, and report to the old patriarch and others that you are safe. Li Quanqing fell into seclusion again, and began to study the refining of Taiyan Dan and heavy water Dan. He had the 3rd level alchemy inheritance given by Honkai Zenran. After these years of meditation, he gained a lot. In addition to the ready-made recipe of Shyanai Dan, it took only a few months to successfully complete the idea of the 2 elixirs. Because the amount of heavy water spirit liquid was relatively large, Li Quanqing first tried the heavy water elixir. After 2 months of alchemy experiments, and replacing nearly 100 kinds of medicinal materials, he finally refined the heavy water elixir. The appearance of the heavy water elixir was a dark blue color that was almost black. The elixir pattern on the surface was like the undulating waves, and it was accompanied by the bright light of starlight. Li Quanqing flicked his fingers, and it was obviously an elixir, but it made a clanging sound like golden stone. The closer he looked, the more it looked like a deep starry sky, like a heavy water star that was shrunk countless times, held in someone's palm. Will it be poisonous if I eat it? Li Quanqing looked at the Qingyu beside him, ready to let it try the medicinal properties. Aoking smelled the scent of the elixir, but shook his head like a rattle, whooshed, and disappeared into the pool. In desperation, Li Quanqing had to call the Kanghe whale, throw the elixir into its mouth and swallow it. Yin. The Kanghe whale made an ethereal cry, swaying its huge body like an island, its two fins as wide as clouds, slowly cruising on the surface of the pool. Li Quanqing paid attention to the physical condition of the Kanghe whale. Fortunately, he did not refine a poisonous pill. The medicinal power of the heavy water pill was slowly released in the body of the Kanghe whale, one wave after another, surging and stirring. Like a heavy water spring emerging from the depths of the abyss, it drilled into every inch of the whale monster's flesh and blood along the meridians, nourishing the body. The Kanghe whale was already on the verge of a breakthrough, and after swallowing a third level elixir, it rushed directly towards the bottleneck of the late stage of foundation building. Yin. The melodious whale roar resounded throughout the Jade Dragon Pond. The body of the Kanghe whale was like a blue and white island dancing, and the demonic energy was dissipating like clouds. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth surged and turned into a small spiritual tide again, rising from the sky like a moving spiritual eye whirlwind. The body of the Kanghe whale was huge, and the demonic energy contained in it was magnificent. Naturally, the spiritual energy required for the breakthrough was also massive. The spiritual veins of the entire Jade Dragon Pond were mobilized again, converging there, surrounded by clouds and mist, making people feel refreshed. This breakthrough lasted for 5 days and 5 nights before it slowly ended. The body of the Kanghe whale appeared again. It vibrated its fins, like cloud wings covering the sky, set off huge waves in the water of the pond, and flew into the sky, wantonly swimming. Li Quanqing was quite satisfied. Now the dragon flame eagle, wind and thunder python, and the Kanghe whale have all entered the late stage of foundation building, and finally they are not dragging their feet. As for whether they can finally break through the golden elixir, it all depends on luck. The Kanghe whale flew around the entire Qingyu cave heaven, venting the excitement in his heart, and then slowly landed, casting a large shadow on his huge body. Harvest a Kanghe whale king in the late stage of foundation building, and reward the golden elixir magical power whale swallowing the world. Whale swallowing the world, one of the ancient magical powers. It can refine infinite sea water in an instant and restore its own magic power. It is rumored that the Kanghe whale king swallows the world, and the space in his belly is boundless and self-contained. Li Quanqing raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect that he would open a space magical power, and it was a rare space way. Judging from the description, this seems to be one of the innate magical powers of the Kanghe whale king, but it can also allow human cultivators to practice. Li Quanqing crushed the light ball, and a blue statue appeared. It still looked like the Kanghe whale king, with an ancient and profound aura. Yin. The Kanghe whale also set his eyes on the statue this time, touched it with his own consciousness, and immediately made the statue glow, and began to comprehend the magical power inheritance contained in it. How much you can comprehend depends on your luck. Li Quanqing held the statue in his palm, and began to comprehend it with his heart. Now, he only has 2 golden elixir magical powers, and they are all derived automatically from the exercises. The boundless blue sea can control the boundless blue sea, turn it into a domain to suppress the enemy, and speed up its own recovery. Moreover, it complements the sky and the sea, and can condense into a giant sea, exerting amazing power. What interests him most is the magical power of swallowing the world, which actually contains some of the way of the great space. After cultivating, as long as he stands on the sea, his magic power can be said to be boundless, and he is invincible. Perhaps because of the Kanghe whale emperor body, it took more than a month for Li Quanqing to initially control this magical power. Chapter 286 Khonshu passes away. Swallowing the world. The East China Sea is boundless, the tides are rising and falling, the blue sea water is surging, stretching to the end of the vision, as if it is endless. Li Quanqing sat cross-legged on the sea, waving his sleeves, and his magic power surged, and he began to use this magical power. On the surface of the golden elixir, lines of magic power intertwined, turning into the huge mouth of a whale, flying downwards and disappearing into the void. The next moment, the sea water surged up, swallowing the area of thousands of miles, absorbing the boundless sea water, and turning into a magnificent and amazing water essence that poured into the body. In just a breath of time, Li Quanqing felt full, and the golden elixir shone brightly, like a small sun suspended in the Danshan. What an amazing recovery speed. Li Quanqing raised his eyebrows. If he was in a combat state, he would not have to worry about the loss of mana at all, and he could use his magic power to fight the enemy. Even this magical power can be used for cultivation. Taking it with cyanide can speed up his cultivation. The only thing to worry about is the strength of the meridians in the body, whether it can withstand the erosion of this majestic spirit for a long time. Li Quanqing took out the Hanhei bowl and poured the water essence into it to nourish the spiritual veins of heaven and earth in the Hanhei cave. But the sapphire blue sea bowl trembled slightly, and all the patterns on the surface lit up instantly, blooming with an extremely dazzling light. Then, the spirits all over the sky gathered and turned into heavy rain, which fell in the cave with crackling sounds. These rains are all composed of the purest water essence, which is equivalent to a part of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Water vapor filled the air, clouds and mist surrounded it. For a time, the spiritual energy of the entire Hanhei cave was slowly rising, and the sea water was even more turbulent. The only flaw is that when the water essence is abundant, it will suppress the other 5 elements of spiritual energy, especially the power of fire attribute. Fortunately, the top grade fire spirit stone buried in the veins of the Red Dragon Mountain can provide a shelter for the Dragon Flame Eagle and the Golden Flame Tiger. The heavy rain lasted for 10 days and 10 nights before it gradually subsided. The sea level in the Hanhei Bowl was rising, making the lonely Yulong Island look even smaller. The entire cave world was filled with water vapor. In terms of the concentration of spiritual energy, it had reached the level of a second level upper grade spiritual vein, which could achieve a simple inner world circulation. It's time to open up a new space. Li Quanqing held the Hanhei Bowl in his hand and looked at the space inside. The vast sea was vast, with only one island standing in it. Although the island was full of vitality, the sea water lacked vitality and there were not many monsters. Since the successful refining of this life treasure, it has been maintained at about 30,000 acres. Even after the baptism of the golden elixir thunder tribulation and his day and night sacrifices, the area of the Hanhei cave heaven is now just close to 40,000 acres. It looks a lot, but when converted, it is only 27 square kilometers. In terms of the surface area of the sea, it is almost a circle with a diameter of 12 miles, which is the size of a lake, and is far from being an ocean. Li Quanqing's giant cultivation, which could easily affect the thousands of miles of sea, was pitifully small, and it was difficult for the void butterflies to stay in it day and night. After making a decision, Li Quanqing immediately landed on an uninhabited island, opened a temporary cave on a cliff, and sat down cross-legged. He took out a large number of empty spirit crystals, which were like silver white crystals, containing a majestic spatial force. This was found in the lair of the void beast, and can be used to refine storage instruments, and can also open up a cave space. Even though the spiritual energy of this world is declining, and the void is unstable, it still requires a lot of natural materials and treasures to open up a cave space in the magic weapon. All the monsters were released and raised on the deserted island to avoid being affected by the turbulent space. Then, one by one, the empty spirit crystals were refined and turned into the purest void power, drilling into the depths of the vast sea bowl. The entire vast sea cave rumbled and began to expand inch by inch, like a bulging balloon that continued to expand, and every time it was blown, it might face the risk of explosion. The happiest one among them must be the void butterfly. This kind of man-made magic weapon space is originally incomplete in terms of the Tao, and it can most intuitively comprehend the Tao of the great void space. Now, with the opening of the cave, a large amount of chaotic void is bred, which is definitely the favorite food of the void beast. For the void butterfly, whether it is the starry sky or the continent, the space is too stable, and it is too difficult to absorb the turbulent void as food. Only the newly opened small world of the vast sea cave heaven is the best choice. The void butterfly gently flapped its wings, and the silver-white demonic energy bloomed, like a long rainbow piercing the sky, like sewing the unstable space like needles and threads. It is precisely because of the existence of this guy that the entire vast sea cave heaven can be stabilized to avoid expanding too fast and exploding directly. It can be seen with the naked eye that the momentum of the void butterfly slowly increased and began to slowly progress towards the middle stage of the golden core. It must be said that the blood of the void beast is really strong, and it deserves the title of the Immortal Mount. After opening up an area of 10,000 acres of sea, Li Quanqing stopped. It is impossible to eat a fat man in one breath. Kai. The void butterfly flapped its wings and made a somewhat dissatisfied cry, as if it was not full. Li Quanqing soothed the other party's emotions. He still had a lot of void spirit crystals in his hand, which could last for a long time. He planned to spend a year to open up the Hanhei cave heaven into a sea area of 100,000 acres, and then try to move a deserted island into it. He now has 2 golden elixir monsters, and it is easy to move some small islands, and even directly move the spirit veins. Li Quanqing put away all the monsters, and returned to the Qinggai cave heaven again, preparing to recuperate for a while. When he came to the outside of the cave, someone was already waiting. In addition to the disciple Li Jingui, there was also Li Quanfu, who looked like a middle-aged man in his 40s, with a beard on his face and a plump figure. Over the years, Li Quanfu, Li Quanfu, and Li Quanj have successfully built their foundations with the help of the foundation building pills he provided, and have begun to become senior members of the family. Seeing the sadness on their faces, Li Quanqing's heart suddenly jumped, and he had a bad premonition. Teacher, my great-grandfather, is about to pass away. Li Jinggui's eyes were red. After all these years, he has grown into a young man in his early 20s, still with a round face, and looks very kind. Now his cultivation is at the great perfection of key refining, and he is about to break through the foundation building. Moreover, Li Jinggui is very ambitious. He does not plan to take the foundation building pill, but wants to follow the example of Li Quanqing in the past and break through the bottleneck of foundation building by himself. Grandpa Kunshu is also about to reach his end. Li Quanqing sighed, thinking of this old predecessor who once taught him how to raise green jade carp. Take me to see the old man again. Li Jinggui led the way in front, and Li Quanfu was not particularly sad in comparison. After breaking through the foundation building, he has become a real senior of the Li family. Naturally, he learned about the incense god, and could get a place for his grandfather Li Kunshu. In recent years, the family has collected a large number of sacrificial artifacts for ancestors, and held a grand sacrifice every year. 6 or 7 incense gods have been born one after another, but their cultivation is not high, and they have been in a long sleep for a long time. These matters were all handled by the old patriarch Li Zhangaiao, and Li Quanqing was not very clear about them. After traveling to the Yuanying sect, his horizons were much higher, and it was difficult to look at anything other than the Jiandan level. Li Kunshu was actually sitting at the gate of the cave, waiting for Li Quanqing's arrival, which was really touching. Next to him, Li Quanzu was also here, and had been taught by the old man, and became a qualified family fisherman. Looking back at this moment, these past events from decades ago were also vivid in his mind. Old man. Li Quanqing looked at the dying old man, and even though he knew that there was a foundation for the gods, he couldn't help but feel a lot of emotion at this time. Even if he could switch to practicing incense, it was still equivalent to being dead, but it could only leave a thought for his descendants. Li Quanqing talked to the old man for a while, and then dismissed his attendants, leaving only 5 people in the room. He started to talk about the incense and gods of the Li family, and the most surprised person present was probably the little guy Li Jinggui. Become a ghost cultivator and linger on. After hearing this, Li Kunshu's eyes were still calm, and he was neither happy nor sad. At his age, even if his cultivation was not high, he had already seen through many things, and even the matter of life and death could be treated calmly. In the eyes of these old people, the gods and incense were just ghost cultivators in another way. In fact, many elderly people in the Li family directly refused, and chose to sit in meditation, looking forward to the legendary afterlife, rather than continue to wander in this world as a cold ghost. Every cultivator has his own beliefs. Even immortality is not what all cultivators pursue. At this moment, even Li Jinggui became a little nervous, fearing that his grandfather would refuse and choose to die naturally. Grandfather, you should choose to become the god of incense and fire. Since everyone who converts to Shintoism must refine their own life-defining magic weapon, your grandson will simply refine you into a flying sword to house your soul. Then the 2 of us will go into battle together to kill the enemy, and beat the hell out of those monsters. Li Jinggui suddenly spoke, breaking the silence in the room, and his words made people laugh and cry. The little guy has been practicing the Gengjin Sword Art since he was a child. It can be said that he is devoted to the sword. He is a rare sword cultivation seed in the Li family. Li Quanqing, however, widened his eyes when he heard it and slapped him directly. Treason, rebellious son. What kind of brain circuit can come up with such an operation to refine his relatives and elders into sword spirits? Li Jingui smiled and dodged and continued, Dad, why are you in such a hurry? When you die in the future, you can just accompany grandpa. 3 generations of us will fly swords to kill enemies and kill all the monsters in the world. Looking at this funny father and son, the old man finally let go of the last bit of grudge in his heart and agreed to switch to practicing incense and fire. The old man didn't want to be immortal. The only thing he wanted was to be able to continue to accompany his children and grandchildren. Chapter 287 Butterfly Demon Breakthrough. With Li Quanqing, everyone came to the depths of the 10,000 fish pond, where the old patriarch had already been waiting, and they could set up the altar for the transformation. As for the natal artifact, it was naturally impossible to really refine it into a flying sword. After thinking for a while, Li Quanqing finally decided to refine it into a fishing rod. After raising spirit fish for a lifetime, the old man was reluctant to give it up, hoping that he would have the opportunity to fish in the ocean in the future. However, Li Jinggui's eyes looking at his old father were still wrong. Perhaps he was really considering the possibility of refining his own father into a sword. Li Quanqing didn't need to worry about the transformation to the incense god. Li Zhangjiao would naturally take care of everything. In addition, the old patriarch also made a request, hoping that he could refine a furnace of foundation building pills, and the medicinal materials would be provided by the family. Now, the Jin generation of the family has grown up, and we can focus on cultivating a few foundation building seedlings. The Quan generation has generally passed the 60-year limit, and we must leave a last thought for the family members. In addition, the outer sea beast tide is coming, and those small sects and families that have surrendered to our Li family should also be properly won over and cultivated to weaken the strength of the Shuhua sword sect in the beast tide. It must be said that the old patriarch is indeed far-sighted and has already thought about pitting the Shuhua sword sect in the next outer sea beast tide. Li Quanqing calculated the time and found that it would only be about 5 or 6 years before the big beast tide that occurs every 60 years, and maybe 10 years later. He couldn't help but think of the giant and cultivator of the Blood Sea sect of the Sitter family. He might still meet him by then. The probability of the 9 Swords Master surviving this beast tide safely is really very small. So in the following time, Li Quanqing began a busy and fulfilling life. In addition to opening up the vast sea cave, cultivating the void butterfly and many monsters, he was also refining a large number of elixirs to prepare for the family to survive this beast tide. As for the fighting instruments, the jade carp raised over the years have already produced enough, and one person can arm the whole clan. In the blink of an eye, another 2 years have passed. It is really a fleeting moment, and no one can catch it. Grandpa Li Quanqing successfully switched to the way of the gods, continued his life, fell into a deep sleep, and nourished his soul. Li Jingui let go of the last knot in his heart and successfully broke through the foundation, and broke through on his own without the help of the foundation pill. He was gifted. He became the first foundation cultivator of the Jinzi generation. After Li Quanqing refined the foundation pill, the Hanhei cave heaven was successfully opened up to 100,000 acres, and the area was more than doubled. On the day of the successful opening, the void butterfly made a light cry, accumulated enough void power, and launched an attack towards the middle stage of the golden pill. The movement of the void butterfly's breakthrough was not very big, because it did not require too much spiritual energy from the heaven and earth, so it did not trigger a spiritual tide. Only strands of silver light bloomed, like silk threads interwoven into a cocoon, wrapping its body, evolving towards a higher level of life. Rich silver light bloomed, and the space fluctuated like water, covering up all prying eyes. However, Li Quanqing could sense the increasingly vigorous pure vitality in the light cocoon, burning like a blazing sun. Bang, bang, the heartbeats exploded in it, becoming more and more intense, just like the sound of thunder and drums, deafening. When the heartbeats reached the extreme, the rhythm slowed down strangely, as if it fell into a long sleep, and restrained all vitality. In 10 days, this process lasted for 3 times, and the breath of the void butterfly finally stabilized. In silence, the butterfly demon broke through the middle stage of the golden elixir, and the silver light was brilliant and shining, like a flowing river. Li Quanqing felt that the movement of this breakthrough was too small. Even the breakthrough of the foundation building monster beast was not as good as it. But this is the power of the Void Beast clan. They draw the power of space to practice, and they don't require much from the environment of heaven and earth. For them, breaking through a bottleneck is as simple as eating and drinking water. Wow! Exclamation mark. The light cocoon dissipated, turning into countless streams of light, lingering around the void butterfly, turning into rune marks, engraved with the power of the void. It spread its wings. It was so beautiful. The silver light was shining, and it gently waved to cover the sun and the moon, as if a sea of void was blooming before his eyes. Li Quanqing looked at the forehead of the butterfly demon. Unfortunately, there was also a white airflow gathering there, turning into a ball of light swaying and shining. Harvest a void butterfly in the middle stage of the golden core, and reward the nascent soul spirit treasure void scissors. Void scissors, a 4th level lower grade spiritual treasure, which can be integrated into the void invisible, measure the space, and quietly take the enemy's life, cutting it in two. Another nascent soul spirit treasure, and it's an offensive type. Li Quanqing raised his eyebrows, which was really happy and distressing. The nascent soul spirit treasure is powerful, so he naturally hopes to have more, so that he can use it as a means to save his life. However, his cultivation was not high. To activate the 4th level spiritual treasure, he needed to consume a lot of mana to support it, and it was difficult to exert its true power. However, when he stood on the sea and performed the swallowing of the world, he was able to control the Yuanying spiritual treasure for a long time to fight against the enemy. Li Quanqing crushed the light ball, revealing a delicate little scissors, like 2 slender silver white dragons entangled together, exuding an extremely sharp breath. A wave of waves emanated, as if it was about to merge into the great space at any time, and disappear without a trace. Li Quanqing activated the void scissors, and with a whoosh, it disappeared directly from his eyes, like a drop of water merging into the sea, and it would never be found again. But with the mana as a guide, he could clearly sense that this little scissors was hiding in the void space, ready to give the enemy a fatal blow at any time. Swish. He drove the void scissors open and gently passed through, and the space suddenly made a sound like cotton tearing. A faint silver trace appeared at the original place, which was the proof that a crack had been cut in the space. It was indestructible and sharp. Yes, it is a good spiritual treasure that can be used to harm people. Li Quanqing was extremely satisfied. He liked this kind of sinister and cunning magic weapon the most. It killed people invisibly and made people unable to defend themselves. Whoosh, whoosh. He controlled the void scissors to fly around. The golden finger was not exaggerating. It was really like a fish swimming in the void, so smooth and incredible that ordinary giant and cultivators could not detect it at all. Only when launching an attack would it flow out a little silver light. Murderous. Kai. The void butterfly turned its eyes, but seemed to have discovered the trajectory of the void scissors, and stared at it without blinking. It gently flapped its wings, and the runes flickered, turning into a silver white glow, as if imitating the power that tore the void. Although it failed in the end, it still gained a lot. The silver light on the surface of the butterfly wings became more and more fierce, just like 2 immortal swords moving around. Li Quanqing got familiar with it for a while, then carefully put away the void scissors. For a long time to come, this would be his most powerful trump card. Suddenly, a talisman in his Qianqan bracelet vibrated continuously, which was the communication method left by the envoy of Gengjin sect. Chapter 288, Gold and Water. Inside the Qianqan bracelet, an ancient talisman vibrated continuously, with the Gengjin sect's system engraved on the surface, like a sky full of stars twinkling. Due to the long distance, only one message was transmitted, which seemed very concise. Li Quanqing used his magic power to activate the talisman, and a flash of joy flashed across his brows. It turned out that the Li family's Gengjin sky boat was completed, which took decades. Gengjin sect's after-sales service is very good. When the time comes, the sky boat will be sent directly to Qingyu Cave Heaven, without having to make another trip. Li Quanqing shared this news with Li Kunlun. This guy also practiced in seclusion every day, preparing to break through the middle stage of the golden core. Considering the coming of the beast tide, Li Quanqing planned to lend the Kangpan Li Qi to Li Kunlun for a period of time. As a kind of heaven and earth divine thunder, it might be able to touch him. After the breakthrough, the void butterfly still looked quiet, flapping its wings, and fell into the Hanhei bowl again. Now that the void spirit crystals have been consumed, if Hanhei Cave Heaven wants to continue to open up, it needs to wait for the next big opportunity. However, the 100,000 mu of sea area is enough for now. We can slow down and nourish the seabed spiritual veins with the water essence. Li Quanqing took out a Shyanai pill and was about to swallow it to practice. Somewhere in Qingyu Cave Heaven, a strong breath rose from the sky, gathering spiritual energy from all directions and stirring up the wind and clouds. Someone has broken through the foundation? Li Quanqing raised his eyebrows. He was not very surprised. He had already refined a batch of foundation building pills. He looked at it intently. Seeing this movement, the probability of breaking through is very high. The Li family is about to give birth to another great foundation building cultivator. Not long after, he got the news that it was Li Jinqing of the golden generation who was trying to break through and finally succeeded. Li Quanqing remembered that this kid was one of the oldest people in the golden generation. He was very talented in beast control and once wanted to worship him as a teacher. Later, he tried to break through the foundation by himself but failed. This person stopped trying. Now it seems that he has exchanged for a foundation building pill. Jinji Yui and Jinxing have broken through one after another, and the Jin generation has also grown up completely. My Qingyu Li family is about to usher in a new glorious moment. Li Quanqing was quite satisfied. When he had nothing to do, he thought about the current strength of the Li family. 2 Jiandan cultivators and 2 third level demon kings are enough to rival those Jiandan clans inherited from ancient times. In terms of foundation building cultivators, the Zhang generation has 2 incense gods, Li Zhangjiao and Li Zhangsuo, who are hidden in the dark and unknown. There is only one Li Kunli in the Kun generation, but the Yu generation is completely wiped out and no one has broken through. There are many people in the Quan generation, including Li Quanmo, Li Quanyi, Li Quanshu, Li Quanfu, Li Quansu and Li Quanj. They are all acquaintances. It can only be said that they benefited from their own light and got a share of the foundation building pill, which enabled them to break through successfully. At present, there are 2 people in the Jin generation, and they will definitely grow up in the future. It can only be said that the currently family members are really in a good era. 2 incense gods, 9 foundation building cultivators, plus 9 green horned fish dragons. That's exactly 20 foundation building combat forces. If you count the dragon flame eagle, the Kanghei whale, the wind and thunder python, the wood peacock, the jade scale beast, the golden flame tiger, the longevity turtle, and the thunder horn python queen. If you count the weakling Bao Guangchen, the monster, there are exactly 29. My Li family is really strong in monsters and weak in people. Li Quanqing stroked the elixir in his hand. If it were a normal family of immortal cultivators, such a huge disparity in the strength of humans and monsters might even make the monsters take over. Fortunately, as long as his strength keeps improving, the Li family will not have these problems. After calculating the current strength of the Li family, Li Quanqing also felt confident that it should be no problem to safely survive this Jiazi beast tide. He had never seen the horror of the beast tide in the outer sea, so he always had some worries in his heart, but as long as he had an extremely strong strength, he would naturally rest assured. When the time comes, we can go to the outer sea and explore the remains of the Cheyenne Head AO again, and perhaps we will gain something. Moreover, we cannot let go of those 3rd level monsters. The monster pills can allow the family to have a few more fake pill cultivators, and the flesh and blood of the big monsters is an excellent way to improve the strength of the spirit beasts. At least the earth flame dragon can be used to nourish the dragon flame eagle, and perhaps it can make up the last foundation for breaking through the 3rd level monster. After making plans, Li Quanqing swallowed the Shyanai pill and began to meditate and practice. This is a persistent thing. Even if he can rely on cheating, he has accumulated it over a long period of time and is used to practicing for several hours every day. Li Quanqing thought that the next days would be clean, and he could just welcome the arrival of the beast-tide with peace of mind. Unexpectedly, another big thing happened. The wife of my cousin Li Quanqing is pregnant and gave birth to a child. To be precise, this is the second child they have conceived after more than 20 years of marriage. It is also the first flesh and blood born by Li Quanqing after breaking through the foundation. It is a pity that Li Quanqing's first child has no spiritual roots. He is just an ordinary mortal. Now he has been sent to the mortal kingdom and has no worries about food and clothing. In a way, immortal cultivators are really cold and ruthless. Immortals and mortals are separated. This is an iron rule that has been passed down since ancient times. In fact, leaving a mortal boy in an environment full of immortal cultivators, seeing that relatives and friends around him can manipulate fire and release water, fly with swords, and seek immortality, he can only fall into the mud of the mortal world. Isn't this a kind of cruelty? You want me to give a name and blessing to this child? Li Quanqing pinched a sound transmission talisman, sighed slightly in his heart, and understood his cousin's intention. Perhaps this is also what his aunt meant. After all, the old man is old and doesn't want to see the separation of flesh and blood from his grandchildren. Quanqing gave birth to this child after breaking through the foundation building. The probability of having spiritual roots is very high, so let's go and take a look. Li Quanqing got up and walked out of the cave, deciding to take a look. As a giant and cultivator, he did not want to cause too much noise. With his magic power covering his body, he quietly came to the outside of Li Quanqing's cave. It was surprisingly lively here, with lanterns hanging high and colorful lights, a prosperous and festive scene, and a sense of happiness in the air. It was not until Li Quanqing walked into the hall and took the initiative to disperse the magic that everyone noticed his arrival. Brother. Li Quanqing immediately stood up from the main seat, his face full of joy, and his aunt next to him was also very surprised. After so many years, this kid has really matured. He looks more than 30 years old and has a majestic appearance. He is no longer as immature as he was back then, and all his edges and corners have been smoothed out. On the contrary, Li Quanqing has always maintained the appearance of a young man, with a fairy-like temperament and a sense of depth like the boundless sea. It is hard to understand. Where's the child? Bring her here for me to see. Li Quanqing asked. He glanced around and found the little baby girl in the swaddling clothes. She was as delicate as jade and very cute. Greetings, senior. Please give me a name. An old man came over with the baby girl in his arms. He had a smile on his face. He looked quite kind, with white hair and a childlike face. He was actually a foundation building cultivator. His attitude was very respectful. Are you the new head of the Z family in Baosu Island? Li Quanqing narrowed his eyes. In recent years, the major foundation building families have also had power changes. The families have their own people to organize the information into jade slips. Therefore, he recognized her at a glance. It's me, Zihan Guyan. Greeting Senior Han Hei. When I first saw you, I felt that you had clear eyes, stepped on clouds and smoke, and were surrounded by a misty fairy aura. You are really a fairy from the sky, isolated from the world. The old man's eyebrows were happy, as if he was honored to be remembered by a giant and cultivator. Hearing this flattery, Li Quanqing couldn't help laughing. He just remembered. The wife that Li Quanqing married was a direct descendant of the Z family. It seemed that she was this guy's direct bloodline and had a deep relationship. He held the baby in his arms. She was really well behaved, cute and quiet, with red lips and white teeth, white and tender, like a piece of lotus root. The baby girl didn't cry or make a fuss at all. She just lay in the swaddling clothes, staring at the people around her with a pair of watery eyes. According to seniority, this little girl should call him cousin uncle. However, since there are no relatives on Li Quanqing's father's side, it's okay to call him uncle directly, without being too particular. Li Quanqing stretched out his fingers and pinched the baby girl's little hand, actually using magic power to detect her roots. Although the baby is not fully developed, if it has an affinity with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, the probability of nurturing spiritual roots is very high. She has a high affinity for water spirits, and there is a high probability that she has water spirit roots. Auntie can rest assured this time. Li Quanqing pondered for a moment and made a decision. Since she is of the Jin generation, and my uncle is good at water, gold and water are intertwined, so let's call her Li Jinhan in the future. Good. What a good name. What a literary talent. Gold casts its shape, water gives its spirit. It is really elegant in style, and the artistic conception is ethereal. Senior Li's talent is like the sea, which makes us look up to him. Zihangan was the first to exclaim in praise, just like a magpie announcing spring. In some ways it can be said to have reached the pinnacle. Others also reacted one after another, and responded to the call, and all kinds of compliments came out of their hands. For a while, the hall was filled with a cheerful atmosphere. Li Quanqing laughed dumbly, looked up and down at the old man, and found it quite interesting. Anyone who can become the head of a family really has something extraordinary. He stayed here to drink a few glasses of wedding wine, and then left a gift, which is quite precious for foundation building cultivators. When the banquet was over, Li Quanqing did not leave, but went to find Zihangan. He had been preparing to go to the Baosu Islands, wanting to contact the legendary 1000-year-old spiritual clan of the Z family and raise its bloodline descendants in his own fish pond. Now it happened that he could go with the head of the Z family in front of him, which would be much more convenient. 1000-year spiritual clan. Senior, you are really a lucky person with a good fortune, and you are always helped by heaven. To be honest with you, my Z family just happened to have a spiritual clan that broke through the second level recently and turned into a double color, which is enough to be called a 1000-year-old clan. Zihangan bowed and told his family's secret truthfully, not daring to hide it. When Li Quanqing heard this, he was also quite surprised. It was such a coincidence. Chapter 289 Millennium Spirit Shell. Hearing that the Z family had an extra 1000-year-old spirit shell, Li Quanqing couldn't help but feel much more delighted. This meant that he might be able to exchange this second level shell monster for it, rather than raising a few 1000-year-old spirit shells as blood descendants. This was undoubtedly a great thing. Zihangan naturally saw what he was thinking, but this time he didn't dare to pat his chest and promise it. After all, the foundation building of the Z family was not just him, and not all matters of the Z family. He, as the head of the family, was qualified to make full decisions. Especially when it came to the foundation building spirit shell, such a matter of the family's lifeblood. There would definitely be many old stubborn people who stood up to obstruct it. Li Quanqing didn't make it difficult for him, but just proposed to go to the Baosu Islands to see the so-called 1000-year-old spirit shell. Zihangan knew it well, and agreed to it, which was considered a favor. As for whether it could succeed, it depended on the ability of the senior Han Heizenren. They didn't delay, and after leaving Li Quanzu's cave, they decided to set off and cross the sea. In order to show his sincerity, Li Quanqing deliberately brought Aoking. The third level monster opened the way, with overwhelming pressure, and no concealment. It was really full of sincerity. This is a third level monster? Zihangan was terrified. Facing that ferocious mouth, he felt like a plate of bean sprouts. Not enough to fill the gap between his teeth. Li Quanqing touched the cold scales of King Gaiu Qiu and invited him to go together, so as not to ignore him. Zihangan didn't dare to climb onto the head of the third level monster, and refused repeatedly, even saying many good things to Aoking in a flattering manner. What a domineering aura, holding his head high, and hissing in the wind, covered with rosy clouds, trampling mountains and rivers, showing the posture of a king, and being the only beast. It can only be said that he is worthy of being a cultured person, with one set of small words after another, praising Aoking a little embarrassed, and shaking his tail. Moo. This guy was happy, and he didn't care about anything immediately. While he was showing his teeth and claws, he opened his mouth and spit out layers of blue cloud-like monster energy. As Aoking soared into the sky, Zihangan's body was also wrapped in the demonic aura, and they rode the clouds and mist, as fast as lightning. It was the first time for Li Quanqing to travel on Aoking, who had broken through the golden elixir. It can only be said that it was really cool. The wind was howling, and the dragon soared into the sky, like a flash of light. In an instant, it had broken through the sky, leaving only a residual shadow swaying between heaven and earth. In just a trance, Li Quanqing saw the familiar Baoking Fang market, and then quickly disappeared behind him. in a cup of tea, Zhihangan saw the familiar scenery again, a string of islands scattered on the sea like pearls. The vast islands, white sands, stretching for hundreds of miles, like a silver belt, set off the blue sea and blue sky. This is the Baosu Islands, where spiritual shells can be seen everywhere, swallowing and spitting seawater to purify the silt, so it is much cleaner and clearer than other seas. The lake waves on the island are clear, like a mirror, reflecting the blue sky and white clouds, green mountains and green trees, like a dream, beautiful beyond words. Moo. Ao King roared, shaking the whole area, not hiding his momentum, and the demonic aura was like rolling smoke, covering the sky and the sun. This majestic dragon power swept across the Baosu Sea, and immediately frightened many spiritual shells on the island. They clamped their shells and swooshed into the cracks of the rocks and mud. Zhihangan smiled bitterly in his heart. It seems that this adult is really determined to get it. I hope he won't bring any disaster to the family. Fortunately, he notified the family in advance through the sound transmission jade card. At this time, the Z family's foundation building monks naturally came together and respectfully invited them to the island. Ao King slowly landed, and the demonic aura turned into blooming blue clouds, with ethereal fairy rhyme and auspiciousness. Li Quanqing came on a dragon, and was above the clouds. It was really like a scene in an ancient painting, which was unforgettable. Li Quanqing looked at the Z family's foundation building monks present. There were actually 4 of them, plus 2,000-year-old spiritual shells. Their strength should not be underestimated. It can only be said that with the promotion of the Li family to a golden elixir family and their rapid development, these in-laws also benefited greatly. Apart from other things, the few foundation building pills released by the Li family alone made these foundation building forces fight each other and make a lot of money. Now the original overlord of this sea area, the Shuhua sword sect, has long been in decline, and is only concerned with shrinking its strength for defense, and even lacks the strength to win over its subordinates. Among these people, Li Quanqing is undoubtedly the most familiar with Zhihangan, a woman with whom he had some friendship when he was refining qi. The real person has come to Baosu Island. It is really a fairy from the clouds descending to the mortal world, and the warm spring sun enters my humble home. Another round of flattery. Li Quanqing was a little tired of listening to it, and directly proposed to go and see the 1,000-year-old spiritual shellfish, eliminating the polite words. The words of several Z family elders were stagnant, and in desperation, they had to take him to the core shellfish farm of Baosu Island. It is called a shellfish field, but in fact it is a huge inner island lake. The seawater is clear, the waves are rippling, fish and shrimps are swimming in the water, and the underwater reefs are clearly visible. Li Quanqing saw the most precious 1,000-year-old spiritual shell of the Z family at a glance. The color is dazzling, like the moon surrounded by many bright moon shells. Although this spiritual shell is only the size of a millstone, it is extremely gorgeous. The surface of the crystal shell is covered with red rainbow patterns, like tree rings, and the white appearance of the bright moon shell can no longer be seen. Like the 1,000-year-old spiritual medicine, the so-called age is just a virtual reference. As long as it is a 2nd-level shell or spiritual medicine, it can be crowned with this title. However, this red zubai has existed since the beginning of the Z family, and it has definitely lived for 1,000 years. In comparison, the other 1,000-year-old spiritual shell is much inferior. The overall color is still moon white, but there is an extra circle of bright red patterns. Lonely. It is only 300 or 400 years old, and it is still due to the great increase in the strength of the Z family that it has recently broken through the foundation. The zubai is psychic. This guardian spirit berry of the Z family must be close to the 3rd level. Li Quanqing took a few glances and immediately saw some details. The long-lived Zhuangberry King's aura has reached the peak of foundation building and has been settled for a long time. Although the spirit berry is not strong, it is born with a long lifespan and can breed spirit beads. It is really a good thing. Senior, you are too kind. Although this bright moonberry king has lived for a long time, its strength is too weak. It is definitely difficult to survive the 3rd level of thunder tribulation. Zhihangan was afraid that he would have other thoughts, so he quickly declined politely, and other foundation builders of the Z family also responded. Li Quanqing smiled and said nothing more, but looked at the newly bred 2nd level bright moonberry. He stretched out his hand and scooped it up. His magic power flowed like a thread, and he immediately fished up this foundation building monster. 7 colors of mood. Moonlight shell. ZHUK. Draw a rainbow on my head and turn it into a colorful mood. Only beautiful things like me deserve to exist in this world. Cultivation. Initial stage of foundation building. 13%. Li Quanqing touched ZHUK moonlight shell and instantly understood the other party's state and thoughts. Aoking turned into a little dragon and wrapped around him. He curiously poked the shell with his claws, making a dong dong sound, which immediately frightened the other party to tremble. The 1000-year-old spirit shell had no dignity of a foundation building monster beast. It trembled and opened the shell, revealing a pearl the size of a human head, as if it was going to be presented to the monster king. I want this 1000-year-old spirit shell, plus some of the blood descendants of King Zhu. Name a price. Li Quanqing said. Naturally, he would not let go of something that came into his hands. He also needed these Taiyan spirit shells to offer him a large amount of Taiyan spirit liquid as a reward to support Aoking's practice. Several Z family foundation builders looked at each other. It was obvious that some people were unwilling to accept it, and they thought about how to refuse as soon as they opened their mouths. 1 foundation building pill, plus 1 foundation building spiritual object. Li Quanqing spoke slowly, and the arrogance in his tone instantly blocked all their words. This deal. In the end, with Li Quanqing's sincerity, everyone was happy. Of course, Aoking's sharp fangs and the ill intentions in his dark blue pupils naturally played a certain role. Li Quanqing put the red moon shell into the Hanhei bowl and took away dozens of moon shells. These are all descendants of the red shell king. There are red lines on the white shells. Their cultivation is generally in the middle stage of key refining, and they have the potential to break through to the late stage of key refining. The goal was achieved. After Li Quanqing stayed to drink a cup of tea, he took Aoking away. Only the Z family members were left sweating and heaved a sigh of relief. Chapter 290 Golden Tiger Breakthrough. The sea of clouds was surging, and a green dragon emerged through the clouds and mist, leisurely and contented, cruising in the void, with clouds and mist all around him, and the breeze blowing in his body, and mist rising. Li Quanqing sat cross-legged between the dragon horns, with ethereal light lingering all over his body, his sleeves fluttering, and clouds and mist shrouding him, showing the spiritual charm of heaven and earth. In a flip of his hand, he took out a pearl the size of a sea bowl, shining brightly, shining on the surface of the pearl, reflecting a colorful rainbow light. This was the 2nd level bright moon shell, a treasure that had been nurtured for hundreds of years, and it was offered voluntarily to please Aoking, the demon king. In comparison, Li Quanqing, a human cultivator, was much less deterrent to the shell monster, and was far less strict than the racial hierarchy of the demon beast. Li Quanqing stroked the spirit pearl, which was cool and warm, containing the purest spiritual power of heaven and earth, and could be quickly refined by the foundation building cultivator to replenish his mana. But what he valued most was the mist in the bead, which was the pure power of the moonlight, like a veil rippling. The moon shell was born close to the moon, and even if it was inadvertently swallowed and spitted, it would accumulate a lot of the moon energy. When these moon energy flows become dense to a certain degree, they will condense into the moon spirit liquid, which is an excellent thing to nourish the soul. Li Quanqing stretched out his hand and immediately pulled out these moon energy flows, turning them into a hazy light mist, and entered the scales of the blue moon dragon. Aoking was nourished by this spiritual energy, and he immediately cried out in comfort, stretched his body and claws to his heart's content, and swam freely between the sea of clouds and the sky. After Li Quanqing finished extracting the moon energy in the bead, he threw it back to the 1000-year-old spirit shell to let it continue to breed. For him now, this bead does not have much use. In the vast sea bowl, dozens of bright moon shells were scattered in the sea, surrounding the 2nd level spiritual shells in the center, swallowing and purifying the seawater. Moo! Aoking suddenly roared, while flying in the clouds, interrupting Li Quanqing's meditation. The blue moon dragon looked down, and above the boundless sea, there stood a volcano, with lava rolling, thick smoke, and a pungent smell of sulfur entering the nose. Hey, I actually encountered such a suitable volcanic island here. Li Quanqing raised his eyebrows, looking quite surprised. The sea area of the vast sea bowl has expanded several times, and the area of the islands in it naturally seems too small and secluded. Li Quanqing decided to move the Red Dragon Mountain out, open up a volcanic island again, and place the top grade spiritual stones as the nest of the dragon flame eagle. After all, solitary yin does not produce, and solitary yang does not grow. The excessive spiritual energy of the vast sea cave heaven is not conducive to the development of the world, and will affect the operation of the five element. Li Quanqing opened the Hanhei bowl, and saw that a foundation had been laid, in advance in the south of Yulong Island, and even a spiritual vein had been moved. A man and a dragon descended and looked at the volcano carefully, and could even detect the faint spiritual energy contained in it. Obviously, this is not a deserted island. Deep in the volcano, there may be a low-grade spiritual vein that connects to the magma of the earth. Li Quanqing released the dragon flame eagle from the bowl. After all, it will be its home in the future, so it naturally needs this owner to explore it carefully. Cry. The dragon flame eagle flapped its wings and cried loudly, flapping its iron-like wings, and went directly into the depths of the magma to swim, ready to find out. Li Quanqing covered the entire volcanic island with his divine thoughts. Even if the spiritual energy here is weak, it stands to reason that there will be monsters and other creatures. His soul swept across the deserted island inch by inch. Unexpectedly, this volcano was really desolate, with magma scattered everywhere, cutting off most of the vitality. Only in the sea water close to the island, due to the existence of the volcano, the power of fire is abundant, and the temperature of the sea water is particularly warm. Coupled with the abundant nutrients of volcanic ash, a vibrant natural bay is created, and clusters of corals grow wantonly, which looks particularly gorgeous. Among these coral reefs, in addition to the common marine fish and turtles, the most common is a kind of fiery red shrimp. These shrimps are bigger than the palm of your hand, and they contain a thin volcanic aura in their bodies. They are a kind of half-demon beast, and they look very tender and juicy, with chewy and refreshing meat. These flame shrimps are in groups, with a number of hundreds of thousands, and they are densely packed among the corals. In Li Quanqing's view, these are all excellent baits, which can just expand the ecosystem of the vast sea cave, and serve as daily food for many monsters. Li Quanqing took out the vast sea bowl, exerted great magic power, and directly packed up this coral reef, and took it away. Before these cruising fish and shrimps noticed what was happening, they found themselves in an unfamiliar sea area after a while of spinning and spun, and immediately fled in panic. Li Quanqing directly set up a formation to block the coral reef to prevent any trouble, waiting for the shrimps to slowly adapt to the environment. The best news is that the seawater in the vast sea cave is undoubtedly richer in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. After Li Quanqing dealt with all this, the dragon flame eagle drilled out of the volcano at the same time, and the hot magma dripped between its wings, melting large pieces of rock. Cry. Between the claws of the dragon eagle, there was also a piece of fiery red moss, which was actually growing on the volcanic wall in the magma, and it was shining with golden glow under the sunlight. Li Quanqing studied it for a while, and with his experience as an alchemist, he quickly confirmed that this was a special spiritual medicine that could be used as food for fire-attributed monsters. According to the dragon flame eagle, there were many such fire spirit mosses growing on the mountain wall at the bottom of this volcano, and they were particularly lush. It must be said that Li Quanqing's luck is really prosperous. He just encountered a volcano by chance, and he was able to find two spiritual objects, the flame shrimp and the fire spirit moss, both of which have their own value. Cry. The dragon flame eagle flapped its wings and flew high. After flying around the entire volcanic island, it immediately let out a very satisfied hissing sound, and agreed to move. Then go. Li Quanqing released the two big monsters, the blue moon Qiu and the void butterfly, at the same time. While waving his sleeves, he laid down a series of formation flags and hit them deep into the foundation of the volcanic island in front of him. Rise. With a rumbling sound, the three giant creatures attacked together, and their magic power mixed with demonic energy, like a spider web, extended to the deepest veins of the island. Finally, with a loud bang, the entire volcanic island flew out of the sea in an instant. Then at the fracture, all the red magma rushed out, falling on the sea like a waterfall, erupting with a deafening explosion, and the water vapor was surging. Buzz! Exclamation mark. The vast sea bowl was suspended in the sky, spinning and spinning. It suddenly enlarged and became as big as the sky, swallowing the entire volcanic island. One person and two demons lifted the entire volcanic island and also entered the bowl, combining the island with the spiritual vein foundation that had been built in advance. After 3 days and 3 nights of hard work, they finally managed to arrange everything. Li Quanqing even collected the magma from the deep earth outside into the bowl, turning it into a magma river and burying it in the deep ground veins in the southern part of the vast sea cave heaven. It was considered to be an artificial creation of a flame spiritual vein. Cry. The dragon flame eagle circled around its new home for several times, opened its claws, and directly threw the top grade fire spirit stone down and hid it in the core of the bottom of the volcano. In an instant, the volcanic island that was born, the Red Dragon Island, seemed to have its own spirituality. Infinite magma rushed out and dispersed the abundant water vapor in the southern part of the cave heaven. The spiritual energy structure of the entire cave suddenly changed. The fire spiritual energy increased greatly and even affected the changes in the ground veins. Following this mysterious energy, the golden flame tiger, who also participated in the creation of the island, suddenly landed at the volcano and launched an attack towards the middle stage of foundation building. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 291, Skyboat arrives. In the vast sea bowl, the blue sea water surged, the waves surged, the world was shaken, and a snowflake-like wave surged. In the southern part of the sea, a volcanic island rose from the ground, echoing the emerald green fish dragon island. The magma rolled and poured down, turning into a lava lake, piling up between the black rocks, and the Yangon fish clan moved the whole clan. In the center of the crater, the dragon flame eagle moved the Wutang spirit wood from its own nest, stretched its branches, suppressed the earth veins, and combed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The hot flame spiritual energy gushed out and scattered in all directions, completely dispelling the cold water vapor on the sea surface. It brought a trace of earth yang vitality to the entire vast sea cave. It was under the influence of this aura that, by chance, the golden flame tiger was actually ready to break through the middle stage of foundation building and attack the bottleneck. It flapped its wings and landed in the magma lake as if it was born from fire, and the golden spiritual flame on its forehead was burning, which was particularly eye-catching. Under the nourishment of abundant fire spirit energy, this group of molten gold flames burned vigorously, like a curtain of flames, covering the entire tiger body. It was like a torch that reached the sky, shining brightly and illuminating all directions. Li Quanqing carefully observed and made sure that the breath of the golden flame tiger was gradually getting stronger, and there was no sign of failure to break through, and he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Over the years, the beast cubs he raised were indeed very competitive, and there were almost no failures in breaking through. He watched for a moment and then stopped paying attention, but took out the coral reefs that had been moved before from the formation. With the sweeping and surging of mana, these colorful corals were resettled and located one by one in the various bays of Red Dragon Island, growing vigorously. The same was true for the flame shrimp groups. As the corals were divided into pieces, they carefully wandered in this unfamiliar sea area, exploring a new world. According to the taste of the tiger cubs, they should like these big red shrimps very much. Li Quanqing thought, and dived into the seabed again, exerting great mana to completely melt the Red Dragon Island and the seabed veins into one. Those dark red magmas, surging in the seabed, with the top grade fire spirit stone as a core, spread out like a spider web. Li Quanqing is a master of formations. In this process, he also intentionally guided the trend of the magma and artificially constructed a prototype of the 9-9 flame dragon formation, which can surge endlessly. Over time, perhaps a ground fire dragon vein can really be bred in the vast sea cave. The amount of magma in the volcano alone is naturally not enough, and it is difficult to cover the entire cave. Li Quanqing went to the outside world many times and directly used magic weapons to dig the large cracks on the seabed left after the relocation of the volcanic island. I saw endless lung poisonous fire gushing out, wrapped in salt and mineral deposits that had accumulated for endless years. After finally finding a breakthrough, it gushed out unscrupulously. Li Quanqing took out the dragon pool to suppress the seawater from all directions and refined the fire of the lungs in it as energy to feed the stone pool, eliminating the disaster in one direction. As for the surging magma, it was poured into the seabed spiritual veins of Hanhei Dangshan, warming the entire sea area and nourishing vitality. This process lasted for a long time, and the large cracks on the seabed finally gradually subsided, leaving only a hideous scar on the earth, emitting dazzling light and heat. It won't be long before a vibrant ecosystem will be born here again, attracting many seabed creatures. Li Quanqing stood up, and even with his cultivation, he felt quite tired at this time. Fortunately, all this was worth it. He moved away the suppressed volcanic island, and also calmed the magma disaster that was about to erupt on the seabed, and the cause and effect were resolved. However, the current cultivation world does not value these, but emphasizes the most important cultivation, the realm first, and everything is to seize resources. As long as a person dies like a lamp, many causes and effects will naturally turn into ashes. Li Quanqing also practiced the tortoise hexagram and felt the secrets of heaven in the dark, so he stayed to calm the seabed fire disaster. He raised his hand and grabbed the dragon pool. The originally grayish-white stone pool now looked fiery red and burned to the touch. The infinite earth fire tempering completely replenished the energy for this nascent soul spirit treasure. The red pool water kept surging out, overlapping, like thousands of dragons and pythons entwined and circling, making a low roar and collision sound. Even on the surface of the pool, there was a layer of blood mist, which turned into the shape of a dragon and entangled together, showing how much energy it contained. Li Quanqing was satisfied. After putting away the dragon pool, he immediately got into the Hanhei bowl. During his busy time, the two big monsters were also working hard. Aoking specialized in making clouds and rain, reconciling the water and fire ki to prevent the earth fire poison gas from being too strong, and affecting the trees and spiritual medicine fields on the fish dragon island. The void butterfly flapped its wings, and tried to suppress the fluctuations in the void. After all, such a large volcanic island smashing in was indeed a big impact on the tiny cave heaven. After all this effort, the red dragon island has been completely stable. Thick smoke billowed, and the endless magma burst out, also providing warmth to the entire cave, and the seawater became more and more vibrant. The golden flame tiger had already successfully broken through, with a ball of light on his head, and he and his boss, the dragon flame eagle, were enjoying a magma bath. They even cut out a few slabs of stone with their claws, floating on the magma, on which were placed the shrimps and sea fish they caught, sizzling and fragrant. Li Quanqing had a strange look on his face. This tiger cub was really smart, and he was getting more and more sophisticated in eating. How when the golden flame tiger saw him, he immediately flapped his wings and held a few slabs of stone to roast, presenting them in front of him like a treasure. Li Quanqing tasted it twice, and it was really not to his taste. The sulfur smell of volcanic magma was particularly pungent. He stretched out his palm and grabbed the ball of light on the top of the golden flame tiger's head in his hand, and words suddenly appeared in front of him. Harvest a golden flame tiger in the middle stage of foundation building, and reward the third level refining technique. Li Quanqing crushed the ball of light. This time, it was not a physical inheritance, but a direct initiation. A majestic refining method savagely poured into his sea of consciousness, which was truly as vast as the stars and boundless. In the Niwen Palace, the little man of divine consciousness even opened his eyes, stretched out his hand and pointed, and took the initiative to sort out and accept this amazing inheritance. I saw endless runes flashing, the text manifested entities, and finally turned into 9 magic weapons that looked like real things, with different shapes and brilliant brilliance. These are exactly what is recorded in the inheritance, and there are enough methods to refine 9 third level golden elixir magic weapons. From the third level inferior to the third level extreme, there is everything. The complexity of the knowledge alone is enough to make people astonished. Even the refining methods of different magic weapons are different, which is completely equivalent to a brand new inheritance. Li Quanqing was immediately delighted. When he thoroughly understood these 9 magic weapons, he would definitely be able to stand at the top of the 3rd level refiner. It is even possible to peek into the secrets of the 4th level spiritual treasure and fully exert the true power of the dragon pool and the void scissors. He couldn't help but rub the tiger's head angrily. It was worthy of being his favorite tiger cub. It was really awesome. It brought a big surprise. After the matter was settled, Li Quanqing decided to set off again and return to the family sea area under the cover of night. He counted with his fingers and found that he had been delayed here for more than 3 months. It was really busy and fulfilling. In a snap of a finger, the night was deep, and Aoking rose into the clouds again, riding on the moonlight, and the galaxy glow covered the sea. The sound of the tide urged the moon to fall, and the dragon shadow followed the stars. Before dawn, they finally arrived at the purple blood sea, and saw the familiar island scenery. A pillar of light shot up into the sky, representing the entrance to the green jade cave heaven. Li Quanqing landed, put the shrunken Aoking into his sleeves, and went directly into the cave heaven. The familiar light of space faded away. He looked up and suddenly froze, with a look of surprise and astonishment on his face. Above the entire Qingyu cave heaven, a silver white star was quietly suspended, covered with dense arrays. Winding mountains and gullies were clearly visible. Li Quanqing did not expect that during the time he was away. The Xingqian sect had actually sent this Xingqian skyboat over. Just floating in the air, it gave people a great visual impact. Chapter 292, Dead Trees Come Back to Life. Li Quanqing looked at the skyboat. The silvery white stars were suspended in the sky. The mountains were clearly visible, which was quite impressive. Many members of the Li family were busy on the surface of this star, checking various formations and adjusting their power. They seemed quite busy. He flew towards there on the clouds. As he got closer, he could feel the terrible power contained in it. Those formations were densely packed, covering the entire planet. Each node was equipped with a powerful magic weapon. It could be called a fortress. Quanqing, you are back. Li Quanqing was sitting here to preside over the overall situation, and was responsible for inspecting the entire star skyboat to avoid any mistakes. It just so happens that you are the strongest weapon refiner in the family. You can take my place and check for any omissions. He was good at drawing talismans, but he knew nothing about refining weapons. Even if the family members found any problems, it would be difficult to solve them in time. Li Quanqing nodded and agreed. He is still a 3rd level weapon refiner. He can observe this star fortress every day and perhaps see some refining techniques. Now that the Jazzy Beast tide is approaching, the family needs us to have stronger power to face the challenge. This is a treasure I picked up this time when I went out. It is suspected to be a kind of heaven and earth divine thunder. I will lend it to you temporarily for your enlightenment, so that you can break through the middle stage of the golden elixir as soon as possible. Li Quanqing took out the precious Kangpan Liki and handed it to Li Quanqing, which was the greatest support given to this senior of the same clan. This is too precious. Li Quanqing was shocked and waved his hand to refuse. This is equivalent to a giant unspiritual object. Take it, it's my duty. Li Quanqing insisted, and at the same time, handed the Thunderhorn Python Queen to him, asking him to take care of it. Among the foundation building monsters in the Hanhei Bowl, the Thunderhorn Python Queen's cultivation has always been very slow, and she is still stuck in the bottleneck of the middle stage of the foundation building. Even the Wanshao turtle has the 3rd level Tao and Turtle's demon pillars in aid, and its cultivation is not slow either, and it is making rapid progress. Now with Li Quanqing's help, perhaps the Thunderhorn Python can quickly break through and get a light ball reward. After sending the other party away, Li Quanqing began to formally look at the starry skyboat in front of him. Watching it up close, it feels even more magnificent and vast. There are no buildings on the surface of the entire planet, which seems a bit bare, with only undulating mountains and gullies. All the palaces and pavilions are located inside the planet, opening up a huge space, with winding passages, just like a maze. Li Quanqing scanned the entire planet with his spiritual sense, and the land was reinforced, as if it had been refined into a large combined magic weapon. He carefully observed the formations and Dao marks, and with the means of a 3rd level weapon refiner, he even made up for a few small defects. Overall, The means of the Xingqian sect's weapon refiners are indeed brilliant, and there are no obvious mistakes that will not become flaws in battle. Then, Li Quanqing went into the interior of the star again, and began to observe the magic formation here, and finally came to the deepest core. In addition to the palace complex, the most important thing is a place to supply energy to drive the operation of the entire skyboat. According to the Xingqian sect's idea, only a large amount of medium-grade spirit stones need to be invested to drive the operation of the entire planet. There were also many spiritual stone fragments piled up beside it. It was obvious that Li Quanqing had tried to stimulate it before to ensure that the skyboat could operate normally. For ordinary Gengjin families, the consumption is naturally very large. If the time of stimulating is too long, it may even cause the family to suffer serious injuries. However, Li Quanqing has a better choice. He took out the dragon transformation pool. In the ancient stone pool, the water surged, releasing amazing and majestic power. Li Quanqing adjusted the formation here, wrapped the dragon transformation pool layer by layer, and controlled the operation of the entire skyboat with this Yuanying spiritual treasure as the core. As the power of the dragon transformation pool surged, the entire silver-white star suddenly revived, and infinite light bloomed, rising into the sky one after another. Li Quanqing's soul, along with the control center, also spread to the entire planet, as if it had turned into his own clone, and every move was under his control. Those magic weapon formations made a buzzing sound, and were in an excited state, ready to exert amazing destructive power at any time. With the star as a fortress, Li Quanqing even had the confidence to fight against the giant and great perfection strongman. As for the nascent soul cultivator, that was still unthinkable. If the nascent soul's magic power fell, the entire planet would probably collapse, and it would most likely turn into a ruin. Li Quanqing's soul was far-reaching, and he explored every corner of the Xiansao, and found many magic tools that could condense the magic power of many cultivators into a whole. It seems that many members of the Li family need to master the use of the Xiansao, so that they will not make mistakes on the battlefield. After Li Quanqing got familiar with it, he took the Hualong pond and returned to his own cave. He took out the Hanhei bowl, took out all the 1,000-year-old spirit shells and those bright moon shells, and raised them in the fish pond. Although the Hanhei cave heaven is full of spiritual energy, there is no moon shining, which is not conducive to the growth of bright moon shells. Ao King also knew that these small shells were related to his own path, so he paid special attention to them, and specially mobilized the fish to vacate a piece of excellent silt for the bright moon shells to recuperate. Li Quanqing observed for half a month, and made sure that there was no major problem with the Millennium Spirit Shell. He was relieved, and put his mind at ease. In the following days, he continued to return to the previous ordinary life, raising fish, practicing, refining pills, and teasing dragons every day. He often took time to lead the tribesmen to operate the entire Star Sky boat, familiarize themselves with its power, and deal with the upcoming Jiazi Beast Tide. The life of a giant and cultivator is like this, simple and unpretentious. The years are quiet, and only the spirit beasts are by their side. In the blink of an eye, another 5 years have passed, and the years are fleeting. It has been 60 years since the last beast tide broke out in the outer sea, and a new beast tide may break out at any time. Even in the Qinggai cave heaven, there is a solemn atmosphere, and people are ready to fight at any time. The Shuhua sword sect sent nearly 10 nodes in a row, striving for the two families to coexist peacefully, help each other, and support each other in this beast tide call. The attitude of many senior members of the Li family is naturally full of promises. As for whether they can do it, that is another matter. Li Quanqing woke up slowly from his practice, looking at the peaceful fish pond, and couldn't help but think of the past. Recalling the last time the beast tide broke out in the outer sea, he had just successfully established his foundation. From a key refining cultivator, he was completely promoted to the family's supreme elder, holding great power. Thinking back now, it was still as vivid as if it was still in his mind. In order to avoid any accidents, he specially called his disciple Li Jingui and gave him the golden elixir talisman golden toad brick. This was the reward given by Bao Guan Toad when he broke through the middle stage of foundation building. It was so powerful that it was enough to make the foundation building cultivator sweep the same level. However, For him, it was not very useful, and it was more suitable to be given to disciples for self-defense. After asking about the condition of Mr. Li Quanqing, Li Quanqing dismissed him and continued to stare at the pond in front of him in a trance. He didn't expect that Li Quanqing's retreat would last so long this time. After 5 years, there was no news even from the Thunderhorn Python. Even the Wind and Thunder Python King in the Hanhei Bowl, who had lost his wife and Kangpan Liki, became a little irritable and often fought with the Dragon Flame Eagle. Fortunately, the cultivation of other spirit beasts did not fall behind. In fact, because of the harmony of yin and yang in the cave, the circulation of spiritual energy, the breakthrough was faster. For example, at this time, the wood peacock was flying on the surface of the Red Dragon Island, absorbing the boundless fire energy in the volcano, and igniting its own green wood demon energy. Blazing. The red flame bloomed, and the whole peacock demon was like a torch, burning while flying, and the light illuminated the world. Wood is easy to make fire. After breaking through the foundation, the wood peacock had awakened part of the blood of the 5-element peacock, and immersed himself in studying the power of fire. When the Red Dragon Island was bred, except for the fire attribute monsters such as the Dragon Flame Eagle, it might be the one that benefited the most. After years of dedicated practice, it finally broke through that bottleneck today and successfully advanced to the late stage of foundation building, becoming the top level among spirit beasts. Harvest a late stage foundation building wood peacock, and be rewarded with the golden elixir magical power. Dead trees come back to life. Right square bracket. Chapter 293 Kunlun Breakthrough. Vast Sea Cave, Red Dragon Volcano Island. The Dragon Flame Eagle was immersed in the magma. Looking at the wooden peacock that had successfully broken through, it could not help but let out a cry, feeling a sense of urgency. Once upon a time, it was the most powerful monster under the master's command, and the first beast cub to break through the second level. Now it is about to be caught up by the latecomers, and its status is not guaranteed, and it is about to fall out of favor. It wants to practice. It wants to break through. It wants to learn from Aoking. Li Quanqing naturally did not notice this side. His eyes were focused on the wooden peacock, watching the white air flow and turn into a swaying ball of light. Deadwood revives in spring. The wood attribute giant and magical power can burst out extremely majestic vitality in an instant, turning into spiritual rain, replenishing a large number of creatures and plants with a large amount of vitality, and recovering from injuries. Li Quanqing looked at the words that appeared in front of him, which turned out to be a rare healing magical power, which was very consistent with the name. He crushed the ball of light and saw a sky full of emerald green light blooming, crystal clear, like a long rainbow drilling into the dungeon, turning into a Daomark condensed on the surface of the golden pill. This divine pattern is like a winding branch, covered with lush green leaves, like a green dragon circling and entwining, indescribably mysterious. Li Quanqing initially activated the Deadwood Resurrection magical power, and suddenly a strong vitality bloomed and poured into his limbs. If he wanted, he could release a spiritual rain with a wave of his hand at this time, nourishing the earth and restoring the vitality of all things. But Li Quanqing didn't, but let this vitality surge in his body, nourishing his body, and finally dissipated in the meridians, blood, and flesh. So this is another use of the Deadwood Resurrection. If you don't use it, it will take the initiative to recover its own injuries. Li Quanqing seemed to have realized something. Under the nourishment of the magical power, his whole body was warm, and he felt an unprecedented sense of lightness. Kai. The wooden peacock let out a long cry, stretched out its wings and landed. Most of its originally emerald green feathers had turned scarlet, like a burning flame. It raised its chin with satisfaction, obviously very satisfied with its cultivation speed, and paced by itself, returning to its nest to recuperate. Li Quanqing glanced at it, but felt a headache. Another spirit beast that was about to face the golden elixir barrier. Each of them was a big gold swallower, which was really worrying. He now understood why it was often said in the world of immortal cultivation that those who came out of the beast family were the poorest of the poor. There was no way the resources earned had to support himself and the spirit pet to practice together, which was indeed a big burden. After the wooden peacock broke through, Li Quanqing did not stay any longer, left the Hanhei bowl, landed on the embankment of the fish pond, and continued to look at the water. to comprehend the art of refining. At night, the stars were twinkling, and the silver moon was shining. Suddenly, a sound transmission talisman flew from the 10,000 fish pond, flashing like a swimming fish, breaking the silence of the night. Quanqing, the Gengjin sect's conscription order has been issued. I'm afraid that the beast tide in the outer sea is about to break out. Come and discuss matters quickly. Li Quanqing opened his eyes, stretched out his hand, and the talisman exploded immediately, and the words of the old patriarch came out from it. Li Quanqing was not surprised. He had been waiting for this day to come for a long time, and had already made sufficient preparations. He immediately stood up and headed towards the 10,000 fish pond, and soon arrived. Not only him, but many family foundation building cultivators all arrived, each with a solemn expression, and the atmosphere was quite depressing. After all, the Jia beast tide is not a joke. It is extremely cruel and bloody, and many people will definitely die. What's more, among the currently family cultivators, except for Li Quanqing, no one has personally experienced such a powerful beast tide, and there is a sense of uncertainty about the unknown. The Gengjin sect has issued an order requiring our Gengjin forces to recruit their monks to go to the outer sea together, follow the Yuanying sect to fight the demon clan, and guard a battlefield. The old patriarch spoke in a deep voice, took out a decree engraved with galaxy patterns, and burst out with particularly rich and bright starlight. A Yuanying pressure spread out, suppressing the void, and many light words could be seen appearing, which was to notify the Qingyu Li family to summon their forces. This Yuanying decree was a certificate sent by the Gengjin sect when the Li family was promoted to a Gengjin clan. I didn't expect that it could actually transmit messages hundreds of thousands of miles away and issue orders so as to control the huge forces in the vast territory under its command. The Gengjin sky boat is ready, and the clan members have been trained and can fight in all directions at any time. Li Quanqing nodded and said he has always been in charge of this aspect and knows it best. Then, we will directly start the starry sky boat and go to those foundation building forces for a round. No one will dare to cause trouble. Finally, we will go to the Shuhua sword sect and drive to the top of their protective formation so that everyone can improve their relationship. Li Jingui said with a smile. He looks simple and honest, but in fact he has the most tricks, and is also a person who secretly cheats people. Li Quanfu glared at his son. There are so many elders here, but you are the only one who can speak. The old patriarch smiled and stroked his beard. He was not angry at all, and his face was kind and amiable. The old man felt a lot of emotion in his heart. If Zhao Kewei had not rebelled, but had been so loving with Li Quanqing, I'm afraid that his great-grandson would be this old now, and perhaps he has successfully built his foundation, becoming a long-lived incense god. Li Quanqing witnessed the increasingly prosperous family with his own eyes, but he always felt lonely in his heart, alone. Gengjin is right. Sometimes we need to be not only merciful, but also show our strength appropriately. The old patriarch finally made the final decision. Just do as he said. Let's drive our Xianzhou out and run around the entire sea area. It can also be regarded as a reassurance to the Z family. The patriarch's plan is very good. With Xianzhou in our Li family, we are strong and can reduce casualties. We can attract those wavering small sects and families to join us, so as to reduce the power of the sword sect. Li Jingui curled his lips. Just by changing the way he said it, his old father's attitude changed 180 degrees. He really treated people differently. Li Quanqing listened boredly and suddenly raised his eyebrows. His consciousness was sharp, and he noticed the abnormal fluctuations in the sky above his head. It was an extremely powerful and violent aura, like a volcano, that had been suppressed for a long time and was about to usher in its final eruption. Almost in the next moment, endless thunders burst out, rumbling like a sea of thunder, suspended above everyone. Everyone was stunned for a moment, and then they reacted, showing an expression of great surprise. After 5 years, Li Quanqing finally broke through the barrier and successfully broke through the middle stage of the golden elixir, and his strength increased greatly. Hiss. In the lightning, the thunder-horned python queen broke through and flew out. Her breath stabilized in the middle stage of foundation building, and she was extremely happy. Chapter 294, Third Level Formation. Above the Qingyu cave, the door to the secret realm opened, and endless lightning gushed out, like a thunderstorm, setting off a rolling spiritual tide in all directions. In the dazzling lightning, the Queen of Thunder Horn Python flew out with her demonic energy, and her aura became much stronger, truly breaking through the middle stage of foundation building. It looked at the long-lost blue sky and white clouds, and couldn't help but let out bursts of cheerful hissing. Anyone could sense the joy and pleasure in the Thunderhorn Python's emotions. After all, after being locked up in there for 5 whole years, being forced to practice hard every day, no one would be happy. A strong aura swept out, like the rising sun, magnificent and vast, with an invincible belief, and the clanging of swords, crisscrossing all directions. Obviously, Li Quanqing succeeded in breaking through and truly entered the realm of the middle stage of the Golden Core, which was powerful and terrifying. At this critical moment, the strength of the Qingyu Li family has undoubtedly reached a new peak, and is about to usher in unprecedented glory. Li Quanqing waved to his own spirit beast, and couldn't help showing a little smile on his face. Firstly, it was because of Li Quanqing's successful breakthrough, and secondly, it was for the milky white light ball on the forehead of the Thunderhorn Python Queen. In recent years, his harvest of light balls was really good, one after another, but unfortunately there were not many unexpected surprises. Harvest a Thunderhorn Python in the middle stage of foundation building, and reward a 3rd level Array Master inheritance. Li Quanqing touched it with his spiritual sense, and his face did not change. The reward was standard and there was not much to be said about it. But it was not to say that this 3rd level Array Master inheritance was not precious. In terms of value, it is definitely one of the rarest 3rd level treasures, not to mention that it is a knowledge-based inheritance. Even in the Yuanying sect, it must be treasured. Hiss. The Thunderhorn Python Queen rubbed him intimately. The single horn on her forehead was shining, the scales all over her body were bright, and electric currents spread in all directions. Crackling. It opened its mouth and spit out a piece of pale green stone, which flowed like an airflow, evolving the most original thunder power in the world. It was the Kangpan Lei Key that was lent to Li Quanqing. After he comprehended it, it was returned intact without any damage. Li Quanqing put away the Lei Key. This was related to the future breakthrough of the Wind and Thunder Python, so he naturally needed to be careful and solemn. Everyone continued to look at the sea of thunder above their heads. Unfortunately, Li Quanqing had just broken through, and had no intention of appearing in front of the clan members. He just sent out a message from his soul, saying that he was ready, and could go to the outer sea with the family, so there was no need to worry. The action plan of the Qingyu Li family has been initially established. It is scheduled that after 10 days, Li Quanqing will lead the clan members to open the Starry Sky boat, cruise tens of thousands of miles of sea, and gather the monks under his command. After that, he and the Shuhua Sword sect will go to the outer sea guarded by the Starry sect to resist the beast tide from impacting the inner sea, and maintain the peace and stability of the entire East China Sea's Yuxin world. Li Quanqing left the 10,000 fish pond, and returned to his own cave, crushing the inheritance light ball of the 3rd level formation master. Now, he is already a 3rd level alchemist, a weapon refiner, and a formation master. His accumulated knowledge is truly terrifying. After the light ball was broken, a vast amount of knowledge poured into the Niwen Palace. This feeling was really familiar, and he had experienced it many times. Li Quanqing was familiar with it, and used the little soul to sort it out and integrate it, and accepted this inheritance in its entirety. It contains a total of 7 formation inheritances, and the formation patterns converge, flashing like stars in the sky, arranged in the Niwen Palace, and complementing the phantoms of the 9 golden elixir magic weapons. Although Li Quanqing's cultivation of the 100 arts has reached the 3rd level in theory, he has not actually refined it himself. Whether it is a 3rd level magic weapon, a pill, or this kind of large formation, the materials required are all precious and rare in the world. He can only use his talents on the Starry Sky boat, a war fortress that combines the 2 paths of refining and formation, to exert the most powerful power. After the return of the Queen of Thunderhorn Python, she naturally had a warm time with the King of Wind and Thunder Python. The 2 of them are entangled together, loving each other, and can be said to be the happiest couple among many spirit beasts. Seeing this, many single beasts silently gnashed their teeth. As night fell, The moon was high in the sky, and Aoking still led many fish schools to worship the moon and practice. The moonlight was hazy and sacred, covering the water like a veil, like a dream. At this time, Li Quanqing had just finished sorting out the inheritance of the formation master. His head was a little groggy, and his temples felt swollen. He came to the dam, and blew the cool evening breeze. A little smell of water plants penetrated into his nose, which made him refreshed, and his mind was much clearer. Moo. Aoking was hovering between heaven and earth, with the dragon horns on his forehead shining, and his body turned into a blue moon hanging high in the sky, shining in all directions, and the demonic energy turned into clouds to lift his body. It did not eat alone. After practicing for a period of time, it even shared the moonlight it brought in with its own brothers, and the silver glow refracted and jumped on the water. With its third order cultivation, a ray of moonlight that it could easily attract could be worth several months of hard training for the fish. In addition to the group of jade carp, the moon shells were also under his care. The ivory white shells were crystal clear, swallowing up the water and sand in the pond, shining with pearls, attracting beams of light, which were particularly dazzling. Nourished by Aoking's moonlight demonic energy, a moon shell trembled slightly, and suddenly began to absorb the spiritual energy in the surrounding water veins. This moon shell species actually completed the accumulation of its foundation at this time, and began to attack the bottleneck of the late stage of key refining. It opened and closed its two shell meats, which were pink and soft, and swallowed the spiritual energy in big mouthfuls, as if it was never satisfied. Li Quanqing watched calmly, without much emotional fluctuation. The key refining realm is really a distant and unfamiliar word, and it doesn't matter even if it fails. Fortunately, with Aoking's care and sufficient external conditions, this moon shell was also competitive enough to successfully break through. Harvest a late stage key refining bright moon shell, and be rewarded with 5 drops of Taiyan spiritual liquid. Li Quanqing crushed the ball of light, revealing 5 drops of goose yellow spiritual liquid, which were round and crystal clear, like a small moon disk suspended in the palm of his hand. It can be used to refine Taiyan Dan. He imitated Xianai Dan and successively developed heavy water Dan and Taiyan Dan, 2 water attributed 3rd level elixirs, which were in line with the 7 true waters. Li Quanqing took out a Taiyan Dan that he had refined before and threw it into Aoking's mouth, which immediately attracted a burst of joy from this guy, and the scales and demonic aura were overflowing all over his body. It's really cool to practice by taking drugs. Whether it's a human or a demon, it's hard to resist this temptation. The cultivation level increases rapidly, and it doesn't have to be as hard and slow as meditation. Now that bright moon shells have broken through one after another, the reserve of Taiyan spiritual liquid is also increasing. Li Quanqing can completely let go of his hands and feet to refine the elixir, so that Aoking can eat enough and break through the middle stage of Jiandan as soon as possible. Just refining a furnace of Taiyan Dan. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. The Xingqian sect's recruitment has a time limit, and the Jiandan forces under its command were given a month, which was still sufficient. The sun rose, the morning light was bright, and the golden light sprinkled on the fish pond, sparkling, and all things were full of vitality. Li Quanqing bathed in the sunlight, put many monsters into the Hanhei bowl, and opened the formation to seal the cave. I'm afraid he will not come back within 2 years. He took a step forward, his figure was like a dream, and in the blink of an eye he crossed a long distance, and came to the surface of the silver white star suspended in the clouds. Today, set off. Li Quanqing activated the dragon pool, and in an instant the stars roared, and thousands of rays of light burst out like swords, shattering the flowing clouds, and the Xianzhou was completely revived. Chapter 295 Recruiting Monks. Between the sky, the silver white ancient stars roared and completely revived. One after another, the formations bloomed, and turned into brilliance, to shine in all directions. As Li Quanqing's voice resounded through the cave, the tribesmen immediately drove the magic tools and soared into the sky, like thousands of streamers dancing. Finally, like young swallows returning to their nests, they all drilled into the deepest part of the sky boat. They were extremely skilled, and had trained many times. A blazing lightning finally bloomed, streaking from the horizon, and landing beside Li Quanqing. The aura of magic power was equally powerful and fascinating. After the light dissipated, the figure of Li Quanqing was revealed. He was wearing a purple robe, carrying a long sword, and he was ethereal and domineering. He nodded and smiled at Li Quanqing as a greeting, and then he also stepped into the skyboat in the void, ready to go on the expedition together. Let's go. Li Quanqing looked solemn, and finally glanced at the ground under his feet, and drilled directly into the core of the star, completely activating the dragon pool. Boom. The entire star trembled, emitting waves of roaring like a tsunami, and finally slowly moved, and flew towards the portal that opened the cave. The vast star with a diameter of 90 miles caused a truly astonishing movement. The sky was torn apart, the clouds were all shattered, and a raging gale was set off. In the 10,000 fish pond, the old clan leader Li Quanqing watched many clan members go away, and his face could not help but reveal a bit of worry. He is now the god of incense and fire, and a guy who has long been dead will naturally not go with the army to fight, so he can only stay at the family position. With his foundation building great perfection cultivation, plus the protection of the clan protection formation, even if the golden elixir monster attacks, he can still hold on for a long time. It can be regarded as solving all the worries for Li Quanqing and others. The silver white boat passed through the space door that was like a water curtain, and its original majestic size was also folded by space, and finally successfully flew out of the green jade cave. Crash. The azure sea appeared before his eyes. The East China Sea was boundless. Even if he stood on the stars, it was still difficult to see the end. In the core palace of the Xian Sao, Li Quanqing casually pointed out and activated several spire rays. I saw a series of light and shadows interweaving, turning into the scene of the Xian Sao, covering the entire palace, which could be used to spy on all the situations in the outside world. At this moment, the entire surface of the star was blocked by denser rays, completely turning into a fortress, difficult to enter and exit. All the entrances to the core of the star were blocked by magic weapons and covered by arrays, making it difficult to find. Sunstones began to glow, covering the sky above the head, completely simulating the effect of normal sunlight. Even normal plants can grow normally in this environment, keeping the air fresh and providing a bright and comfortable environment. The Gengjin sect also buried a spiritual vein here. Although it is only at the second level, it is enough for Gengjin Zenran to meditate and recover his mana every day. It can only be said that it is worthy of being called the way of immortality. All aspects have been taken into consideration. The Gengjin sect also learns from them. The Hualong pond hummed, and the water in the pool surged. A stream of power was drawn out and turned into energy to drive the entire Xian Sao. Li Quanqing stood by and couldn't help but look at it a few times with a look of surprise on his face. He could naturally see the amazingness of this magic weapon and even vaguely realized that the power contained in it had surpassed the level of Gengjin. He did not speak out his doubts, or he had long been accustomed to it and maintained the necessary silence. Let's go to all these forces according to the distance. Li Quanqing took out a jade slip, which recorded in detail the map of the sea area of tens of thousands of miles, and every large and small force was recorded. Only those foundation building forces can make the Li family look up to them. The closest one is naturally the Z family of Baosu Island. The two families were originally allies, so they are naturally very close and often intermarry, making them closer. Li Quanqing manipulated the skyboat, turning into a stream of light and flying towards the distance at an extremely fast speed, no less than the speed of a Gengjin Zenran flying at full speed. Puffs of air were crushed, making rumbling explosions, and the strong air pressure tore the seawater, leaving a turbid wave rolling behind, which was difficult to calm down for a long time. During the flight, Li Quanqing even activated several small formations, which bloomed with brilliance and turned into the fish and dragon pattern of the Qingyu Li family, showing the power of the family. In this way, even those small key refining families can also admire the majesty of the Qingyu Li family. The speed of the skyboat was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, the Baosu Islands appeared in front of them, with clear water and white sand, clear and clean. The silver white stars fell from the sky, casting a huge shadow, as if a hole was cracked in the sky. That kind of powerful oppression is simply unparalleled. The Z family had been notified in advance, and naturally they were happy to cooperate with the Li family at this time. Honestly, respectfully, and obediently, they sent out their clansmen, using several large spiritual boats as carriers, and followed the Li family in the sea. Next came the Yun family of Zioyao Island, the Wang family of Tangha Island, and the foundation building sects that had joined them in recent years. The Xingqian skyboat soared into the sky, rumbling, and directly crushed all obstacles in front of it. Nothing could stop it. When the Wanli Sea area was thoroughly patrolled, a large number of spiritual boat fleets had gathered behind the entire star. There were densely packed heads, all filled with immortal cultivators, and waves of magic power gathered together, just like thousands of immortals coming to pay homage, which was indescribably shocking. The Zioyao cloud boat of the Yun family followed closely behind, looking like a younger brother, and no longer had the arrogance of the past. After all, the Li family is too powerful now. Just the aura of the Tajindan Zenran can easily destroy all their cultivators. It can be said to be a crushing victory in terms of combat power. The last stop. Shuhe Sword Sect. Li Quanqing stroked the jade slipsy map, and couldn't help showing a little interest in his eyes. Beside him, Li Kunlun also showed a little smile, thinking of the scene of them ruling the sword sect. It was really interesting. Rumble. The Xingqian skyboat continued to fly forward and completely entered the sea area ruled by the Shuhe sword sect. The scenery of the islands in sight was much more unfamiliar. In order to create a greater impact, Li Quanqing also deliberately slowed down the speed of the skyboat, so that the many forces under the sword sect could see it clearly. In this way, he could win them over, separate the strength of the sword sect, weaken the opponent's power, and finally completely exclude the opponent. Finally, Li Quanqing saw the Shuhe Islands again. A mountain rose from the ground, clanging like a sword, and directly pierced into the depths of the clouds. From a distance, they had already seen the sword sect's protective formation, and the formation was fully activated, as if facing a great enemy. Finally, it's here. On the top of the sword peak, True Man Jiu Jian looked at the crushing starry skyboat with an unprecedented solemnity on his face, and even a trace of regret in his heart. Why did they allow the Li family to grow so strong back then? Fortunately, he was not unprepared this time. True Man Jiu Jian looked at his invited friend, a real giant and true man, and instantly felt a little more confident. Chapter 296. Offshore Battlefield. Shuhe Islands. One mountain after another rises from the ground, as tall as a sword. The third level formation blooms with rosy clouds, and the formation patterns interweave, blocking the void, showing the heritage of the 1,000-year-old sect. The silver-white starry skyboat rolls over, rumbling, and behind it is a dense team of monks. The spirit boat covers the sky, and the magic weapon shines endlessly. Li Quanqing looked down at the Shuhe sword sect below, raised his eyebrows, and actually sensed two auras of Dan formation from it, without any concealment. He and Li Kunlun looked at each other, thinking about how to continue, when the formation of the sword sect below suddenly opened, and dense monks flew out of it. There are so many of these monks, there are thousands of them, and there are warships across the sky, including many large third-level spirit boats with flags flying, and there are definitely more than just sword sect monks. Obviously, the Nine Swords Master knew that the Li family would come to the door, and summoned his monks in advance to support the scene, so as to show his power. Interesting. You're just trying to trick me. Li Quanqing narrowed his eyes, and looked at the two Jindan Zenran stepping on the void above the sword peak, with a sense of pressure spreading all around. It's been a long time since I last saw you. The Li family's fellow Taoists have come in person, which really makes the sword sect happy and proud. Gengjin Zenran laughed, and next to him stood a mighty man in a green Taoist robe, with a pattern of a jasper phoenix embroidered on the sleeves, towering into the sky. I'm Bewu Zenran. Nice to meet you two fellow Taoists. The green-robed monk's voice was very hearty, and he looked heroic, with a sharp face and bright eyes. He looked righteous without being angry. So it was him. Li Quanqing knew this person. He was the leader of the Jindan sect, the Bewu sect, and his territory was next to the Shuhe Sea. When he was building his foundation, he was entrusted by Mu Doran from Hanchi Xiansheng to go to the Bewu sect to deal with the problem of the monster missing butterfly, and he had seen this person before. During the last Jia Beast Tide, the old leader of the Beiwu sect died on the battlefield, and the sect was in turmoil. In the end, it was the middle-aged man in front of him who succeeded in forming the golden elixir, and only then was the sect restored to its glory, instead of falling into decline like the Shuhua sword sect. Li Quanqing was surrounded by immortal light, and walked out with Li Kunlun, as if to greet them. They looked very harmonious with each other. Middle stage of the golden elixir. Jiujian Zenran smiled kindly, but his heart sank instead. His eyes were solemn, and he sensed the deep pressure that was much higher than the early stage of the golden elixir. Beiwuzi also noticed this, but he remained calm, chatting and laughing, and looked like he had a very friendly relationship with the Li family. Last time, there were monsters lurking in my Beiwu sect, waiting for an opportunity to split the sect and start a rebellion. Thanks to the two Taoists for helping you. You are really kind and righteous. The Beiwu sect and the Li family are both under the Gengjin sect. This time, we are recruited to go to the outer sea to hunt monsters. We should also help each other. After listening to a few words, Li Quanqing immediately understood the plan of the Nine Swords Immortal. This guy still doesn't trust the Qingyu Li family. He is afraid that the Li family will do something to pit the Shuhua sword sect during the beast tide. So he took great pains to win over the Beiwu Immortal, and wanted to exchange the outer sea territory with the Beiwu sect to stay away from the Li family. Li Quanqing was naturally very happy about this. The Sita family was secretly ready to take revenge on the Shuhua sword sect during the beast tide. Now that the other party has taken the initiative to stay away from the Li family, they can clear their suspicion at that time. After a conversation, both parties were very satisfied with the current arrangement. The Shuhua sword sect had already recruited monks in advance and could set off at any time. Li Quanqing did not hesitate to mobilize the cultivators led by the Li family to join the other side and fly towards the open sea. Although the two huge teams seem to be close to each other, they are actually clearly separated and have obvious differences. They each have their own main force. They flew out of the Shuhua Sea and happened to meet two more teams. The one on the west was led by a group of female cultivators wearing moon-white palace skirts with fairy hair. Each of them was a great beauty, looking radiant. This was the team of the Yanyu sect, which was also summoned by the Gengjin sect to join them. Li Quanqing smiled and glanced at Li Kunlun, who did not change his face, but flew out of the Cheyenne Sao and took the initiative to find the Yanyu sect saint from the Shen family. The only pity is that this Shen family cultivator is still in the foundation building realm and has not broken through the golden elixir. After all, this pass is too difficult. Li Kunlun was obsessed with the great Dao and did not indulge in the affairs of men and women, but failed to leave a few offspring. As for the team in the east, they were the cultivators under the command of the Beiwu sect, and they also flew their flags and gathered into a stream of people waiting there. In comparison, the Shuhua Sea had never been unified, and many foundation building forces were divided on both sides, which made it seem a little less imposing. Let's go. The four Gengjin Zenran ordered at the same time, and the army set out, driving the spirit boat, and heading towards the end of the sea. Nearly 100,000 cultivators set out together, with battle flags fluttering and rolling in the wind. Various colors of magic power and spiritual light bloomed, like clouds rolling across the sky, shaking the mountains and rivers. Surrounded by the group of cultivators, the Gengjin sky boat was undoubtedly the most dazzling, like a silver white moon floating in the sky. The array patterns intertwined, shaped like a flowing galaxy, and the runes wandered like dragons and snakes, crisscrossing, cutting through the boundless sky, and heading to the deepest part of the sea. Li Quanqing sat in the center, guiding the vast road, and all the Li clan members performed their duties. The sky boat was vast, and the aura it exuded was enough to suppress any giant and cultivator. Along the way, wherever they looked, they saw teams of immortal cultivators marching like them, covering hundreds of thousands of miles. All the cultivators in the entire East China Sea were dispatched, and the Gengjin forces from all sides rushed from the mountains, rivers, and seas to fight for their tribes. The immortal light tore through the sky and was unstoppable. After trekking for more than 10 days, they finally arrived at the front line of the outer sea, the battlefield where the human and demon tribes fought the most fiercely. At the end of the sky, a series of light pillars shot up into the sky, turning into a great wall-like barrier of rosy clouds, inserted into the depths of the sky, stirring up the wind and clouds, running across the north and south, and dividing the entire outer sea battlefield into two. Only when you get closer can you see that it is actually a series of artificially created islands, dotted around, and separated by thousands of miles. Like a series of bridgeheads, it divides the territories of the human and demon tribes and spreads to the end of the site. On each island, there are light pillars shooting up into the sky, evolving into dense formations, blocking the void, separating the ocean, and preventing the demon tribe from attacking and sneaking into the inland sea to stir up trouble. After the four major Gengjin forces discussed, all the Gengjin Zenran went out to visit Gengjin sect first. The Gengjin sect's headquarters is still tens of thousands of miles away, but with the flying speed of Gengjin Zenran, it only takes 2 or 3 hours of practice. The sky above the Gengjin sect's headquarters was particularly shocking. There were nearly 100 starboats suspended, like a galaxy shining brightly, manifesting the world. The one who received everyone was the current leader of the Gengjin sect, an old man in the Gengjin Great Perfection realm, with a very kind attitude. After talking with Li Quanqing and others, he arranged the places that needed to be guarded, which were the islands, using the formation to resist the monsters. The four major forces have different areas of control. Although they are generally assigned to the same area, they are tens of thousands of miles apart. Li Quanqing held a jade card and returned to the family. He led the Xian Zhao and the army of cultivators to a remote island. These islands that form the Great Wall Barrier are all artificially refined, with a radius of 300 miles and 10,000 miles between each other. In terms of the rich spiritual energy alone, it has reached the second level extreme. With the presence of a Gengjin Zenran, it is enough to exert the true power of the third level formation. Li Quanqing looked around. The islands adjacent to the north and south were guarded by Gengjin sect monks, separating these Gengjin forces. This is convenient for battlefield supervision, to prevent some Gengjin sects from joining the demon clan and opening the defense line privately, causing a battlefield defeat. Yanyu sect is located in the south of the Li family, to the north is the Beiwu sect, and further north is the Shuhua sword sect. With the Gengjin sect monks in between, the Li family is more than 40,000 miles away from the sword sect. Even if something happens to Shuhua sword sect, no one will hold him accountable. Chapter 297 Hidden Turtle Shell. This sea area seems familiar. Li Quanqing looked at the deep sea water, the vast sea, the turbid waves, and suddenly remembered something. So it's here. The submarine secret passage is in this direction. The submarine secret passage is actually in this direction? When Li Quanqing heard Li Quanqing's words, he suddenly felt a lot of surprises in his heart, even a little incredible. This is really too much of a coincidence. You know, that sea area is suspected to contain the remains of the Cheyenne Road, a treasure left by an ancient Huashan sect, and its value can be imagined. It's this sea area. I have come here to train, and then I was chased by the Golden Crown Thunder Rock, so I'm very familiar with it. Li Quanqing nodded, and the memories before the dungeon emerged one by one. He became more and more certain, and pointed to the northeast. It's almost in that area, about 60,000 miles away, very close to the front line of the battlefield. For a Gengjin cultivator, this is indeed not far away, and it can be reached in a straight line in a few hours. Li Quanqing's heart was pounding. Now that he was strong enough, he might be able to kill the 2 third-level monsters. Not only would he avenge his past, but he could also try to open the ruins. You know, Zhao Keiwei was also there. If he wasn't killed, he would be a big worry sooner or later. Li Quanqing's heart was surging, and he wanted to go explore now, but he knew that this matter could not be rushed and needed to be considered in the long run. If the noise was too big, and attracted the attention of the nascent soul creatures, it would be more trouble than gain. Li Quanqing suspended the starry sky boat over the guarding island, and the silver-white light shone like a small moon hanging in the sky. He landed and began to check the 300 Li island. Because it was man-made, all kinds of arrangements were very good, with lush vegetation and abundant spiritual energy. It could be regarded as a fairyland. Only between the reefs and cliffs on the shore could you see the bloody color that could not be washed away at all, showing the cruelty of the human-demon battlefield, with corpses everywhere. Most of the Li family cultivators lived in the Cheyenne's How. This island was just left for the foundation building forces of the Z family, which was more than enough to accommodate more than 10,000 cultivators. There were a large number of buildings on the island, as well as some scattered cultivators who came to the outer sea for training. Naturally, they all surrendered at this time, willing to offer their loyalty and jointly resist the demon clan. This tossing and turning took another half a day. When night fell, it was completely dark, with stars shining above his head. Li Quanqing sat cross-legged in the main hall in the center of the island, playing with a jade card in his hand, which could control the third level formation on this island. Of course, only part of the authority was not complete. The real authority was in the hands of the Yuanying sect to prevent anyone from surrendering to the enemy. Li Quanqing stroked the jade card, infused his magic power, and carefully comprehended this third level ice snake Cheyenne Luo formation, which took the entire island as a core, and covered thousands of miles of sea. His spiritual consciousness also spread to the surrounding seas with this jade card, and he saw the dark sea water surging with the waves. Suddenly, his consciousness moved slightly, and he noticed something strange in the sea water. It turned out that there were monsters lurking in the night, trying to break through the blockade of the formation. Li Quanqing was merciless and directly activated the formation. The cold air flowed, and the Skynet intertwined, freezing this small group of monsters into powder. My place is in an extremely remote sea area. Now there are monsters coming to spy. I guess the beast tide is approaching. Li Quanqing exhaled a turbid breath, slowly opened his eyes, and revealed a bit of solemnity. He had received a lot of intelligence from the Gengjin sect before. Now, in the outer sea battlefield, only some areas have erupted in large beast tides, and other sea areas are very calm. Li Quanqing stretched and prepared to give the jade card to Li Kunlun, so that he could also experience it. Suddenly, a large wave broke out in the Hanhei Bowl, and the spiritual energy was agitated, which immediately attracted his attention. There is a breakthrough among monsters. Li Quanqing raised his eyebrows, and immediately took out the Hanhei Bowl, and looked at the scene in it. I saw the cave in the bowl was floating up and down, vast and boundless. A huge black turtle emerged from the water. Its shell was like a mountain, covered with layers of mud and moss, and looked very wild. It was the Wanxiao turtle, who was breaking through to the middle stage of foundation building. Moo. The turtle roared to the sky, making a low and melodious roar that spread in all directions, setting off waves. A demon pill flew out of its shell, and hovered above its head, shining brightly. The demon energy was as majestic as clouds, refining the essence of all directions and falling. After all these years of practice, the Wanxiao turtle finally broke through. There were not too many bottlenecks and obstacles, and the breakthrough was very smooth. The only problem was that it took a long time, 5 days and 5 nights, just like the temperament of the turtle, lazy and slow, not hurried or slow. 5 days later, this guy finally broke through. His cultivation aura became stronger, and he let out a joyful hissing sound, shaking his head and tail there. Harvest a longevity turtle in the middle stage of foundation building, and reward the third level top grade magic weapon Hidden Turtle Shell. Hidden Turtle Shell, a top grade golden elixir magic weapon that can conceal all its body shape and breath, turn invisible and shadowless, and sneak into the void. Even a Yuanying cultivator can sometimes make mistakes. Li Quanqing grabbed the ball of light in his hand, and his eyes suddenly lit up. He didn't expect that such a ball of light would be rewarded at this time. With the help of the hidden turtle shell, he could hide his body, leave the island at night, and go to the Cheyenne Sea to explore and try to find the remains of the Huashan sect. He crushed the ball of light, and countless light spots flew, turning into a pitch black armor with turtle shell-like patterns carved on it. The color was as sticky as ink, like a dark and deep night. If observed in the sunlight, the whole armor would appear translucent, as clear as crystal. After Li Quanqing used his magic power to refine it, and put on this tortoise shell, his figure suddenly disappeared without a trace, and there was no trace of it. It was as if he was directly wiped out from space. No matter his eyes or consciousness, he could not detect any abnormality. Even the breath of magic power was covered up and silent. Li Quanqing was amazed. In order to test the power of this top-grade magic weapon, He walked in front of Li Quanqing. The other party was drawing talismans in the hall and cultivating his body and mind. A trace of thunder magic power lingered in the hall, and he could definitely detect the slightest movement. Even so, he still couldn't see through Li Quanqing's disguise and let him swagger into the palace, turn around and walk out. He didn't notice any abnormal signs at all. Good baby. Good baby. Li Quanqing laughed in his heart, and he finally had one more trump card. With nothing to do, he thought about walking around the island and getting familiar with this magic weapon. Unexpectedly, he actually stumbled upon an incredible secret and actually spied on the whereabouts of the monks from the Sitter family. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 298, Azure Sea and Yellow Spring. With the help of the ability of the hidden turtle shell, Li Quanqing hid his body and walked on the island, adapting to the use of this top-grade magic weapon. Unexpectedly, he actually spied on something incredible and discovered the traces of the Sitter family. Li Quanqing stood on a hill, looking down at a building below, with a bit of amusement in his expression. This is a small key refining sect, which seems to be attached to the Yun family of Zioyao Island. Naturally, he had never heard of it before. Li Quanqing's spiritual sense covered it, and he accidentally discovered a foundation building aura, and immediately noticed something unusual. After carefully investigating for a while, he found that the deepest secret hidden in this sect was actually a spy planted by the Sitter family in their own power. It's normal that you can easily take out a foundation building cultivator. It seems that the strength of the Sitter family has also recovered a lot. Li Quanqing monitored the movements of this person with his spiritual sense and thought in his heart. Situeluo has already formed a pill, and as a direct disciple of the Yuanying sect, it is really easy for him to train several foundation building cultivators. Li Quanqing stood here and observed. His golden elixir consciousness was invisible and could see all the actions of the Sitter family. They were actually spying on the detailed information of the Qingyu Li family. Needless to say, they definitely had bad intentions and might be plotting behind the scenes. In the future, when the beast tide breaks out, we can create an accident and let these people die quietly. At night, the stars were twinkling, the moonlight was hazy, and the outer sea was wild. Even the moonlight was sad and beautiful, and seemed particularly bright. Li Quanqing stood here and watched for a day. He was about to leave and arrange for his disciple Li Jingwei to secretly monitor this matter. Unexpectedly, the foundation building cultivator of the Sitter family actually pretended to be a key refining cultivator and sneaked out of the station and headed towards the sea. Who are you going to meet? Relying on the hidden tortoise shell and his own strength, Li Quanqing was not afraid and followed him with a swagger, wanting to see what was going on. Dark clouds filled the sky, covering the stars and the moon. The tide roared, and the world was dark. This person took out a bead, and it turned into a stream of water, completely blending into the sea, drifting with the waves, and disappearing without a trace. Although this bead is a rare treasure with powerful effects, it is naturally not hidden from Li Quanqing, who can see it clearly with one glance. He walked in the void, following closely behind this person, not too close, and exerted all his strength to activate the tortoise shell on his body, for fear of alerting the enemy. In the blink of an eye, 3,000 miles of sea passed by, and it was already very close to the demon clan's territory. The scene on the seabed was wild, and a thick layer of fog was spreading on the water surface. Golden elixir breath. Li Quanqing's soul has always been a strong point, so he easily sensed a golden elixir power hidden in this heavy fog. He hesitated a little, but finally withdrew his consciousness and walked into the fog with only a pair of naked eyes. Fortunately, there was no accident, and he successfully met the mastermind behind the scenes. Deep in the fog, a blood-red lotus blossomed, and Situeluo was sitting cross-legged in it, wearing a red robe, with strange eyebrows and eyes, and a demonic aura. As expected of an alien blood spiritual root, he was also a top-grade earth spiritual root, and with the cultivation of the Yuanying sect, he actually broke through the middle stage of the Gengjin realm. Blood-colored rivers wrapped around him, as if they had their own lives, evolving into the shapes of various monsters, and the blood was surging. Greetings to the Supreme Elder. The foundation building cultivator of the Sitter family emerged from the sea, saluted respectfully, and did not dare to raise his head at all. Situeluo hummed, opened his eyes, and his pupils flashed with blood-red magic light. How is the information I asked you to find out? The Sitter family took out a jade slip, which contained the organized information, and then said, reporting to the Supreme Elder, the location of the island, where the Shuhua sword sect is stationed has been explored. Just. Situeluo listened quietly, and finally laughed sinisterly. Master Jiujian, let this giant and shame pay for the blood debt of my Sitter family. With the blood of the sword sect, sacrifice the spirits of my ancestors. The Supreme Elder is wise. Li Quanqing stood in the distance, only occasionally glanced over here with his peripheral vision, and heard their conversation clearly. Even if there is a magic weapon to cover it, a long-term prying gaze may also arouse the vigilance of the giant and cultivator. At this level of cultivation, the 5 senses are improved, and even the 6th sense has been awakened in the dark, and it is often possible to act on a whim. He had sneaked a peek at the records in the jade slip before. It specifically recorded the strength of the Li family members, how many golden elixirs there were, and how many foundation building cultivators were born. Even the starry sky boat was recorded, and even the powerful monsters that Li Quanqing had shown were described, which were also counted. But what concerned him was that the Sitter family was actually trying to find out about the Li family's clan protecting skills. This was definitely the biggest secret hidden by the Li family. After all, it was related to the inheritance of the Cheyenne Dao, and it was hard for people not to associate it. Sure enough, Situeluo's eyes flashed at the end, and he asked, have you found out about the Qingyu Li family's 1000-year-old skills? In terms of clan protecting inheritance, the Li family has always been very cautious, and kept it very secret. In the end, we got the specific information through the Li family's relatives, the clan members and cultivators of the Z family on Baosu Island. Its name is the Blue Sea Tide Rising skill. After a while, Situeluo just hummed. His expression was neither sad nor happy, and he waved his hand to send this person away. Li Quanqing could sense that this guy was not calm. He was so eager to investigate the foundation of the Li family's skills, and he must have had some ulterior motives. Perhaps he had discovered something. A hint of coldness flashed in his eyes, and he was already considering killing the other party directly. With the void scissors in his hand, even if the other party was also a giant and cultivator, he was sure to kill him with one blow. Even if killing Situeluo at this time would cause the 9 swords immortal to escape death, he could not care about that. Just as Li Quanqing was about to make a move, a new movement suddenly arose in the mist, which immediately stopped him from moving, and even held his breath. Under the blood-colored lotus, the sea water surged, and suddenly turned into a deep dark yellow, like mud surging. A sense of decay permeated, and the breath of death completely enveloped the sea. The yellow spring surged, like a mud waterfall rising into the sky, dyeing the entire blood lotus a withered yellow, completely corrupt and withered, exuding a sense of ruin. Situeluo was so frightened when he saw this scene that he trembled all over, but he still stood up and saluted respectfully. Greetings, Master. Li Quanqing was also shocked when he saw this. He didn't expect there would be such a reversal. The hope of the Sitter family for thousands of years, a high and mighty giant and cultivator, was actually secretly manipulated and became a puppet slave. The dark yellow sea water surged, turning into a blurred figure, and the voice was hoarse, like iron plates rubbing against each other. The blue sea and the yellow spring, between life and death. I didn't expect it. I didn't expect it. My yellow spring sect has been searching for thousands of years, and I would find a clue in this corner. Chapter 299 Cheyenne Sea. Above the sea, thick fog filled the air. The scene was wild. Even the traces of the demons were rarely seen. 2 figures stood on the sea, one blood red, the other dark yellow. The sea of blood and the yellow spring intertwined. Bones sank and floated. The gloomy aura was unspeakably terrifying. Congratulations, Master. Congratulations, Master. Situ Luo said flatteringly, without any of the majesty he had in front of the tribe before. Now that the lost heritage of the Bihai lineage has been discovered, if it is reported to the Yellow Spring sect, no one will be able to compete with the master's position as the Holy Sun. Afraid. As soon as these words fell, Situ Luo was slapped hard several times, with great force, definitely using magic power. Several teeth were slapped off, and half of his face was swollen. You are an idiot, stupid. There is only one Gengjin in the entire Li family who practices the Jade Sea inheritance. Such a great medicine. Will it be my turn when the time comes? Why not wait until I swallow him, and the Yellow Spring and the Jade Sea merge into one, and understand the way of life and death, and directly break through the nascent soul realm. At that time, I will bring this Jade Sea inheritance back to the sect, and use it to coerce and lure those old guys. The entire Yellow Spring sect will respect me as the master, who will look down on a little saint's son. The Yellow Spring sect cultivator spoke with a grim smile, showing the intrigues and deceptions in the demon sect to the fullest, and it was like a brotherly friendship between brothers. Master is wise. Master is wise. Situ Luo, with half a pig's head, smiled like a pug, and did not dare to have the slightest resistance. He could obviously use magic power to restore his appearance, but he did not dare to do so, for fear of incurring greater punishment. You have done quite well these years. You have made a great contribution to discover the inheritance of the Azure Sea. It is worth the effort I have put into cultivating you to form a pill, and supporting you to ascend to a high position in the Blood River sect. After I form my infant, I will lead the demon sect, and make the reputation of my Yellow Spring sect resound throughout the East China Sea again. We must not let go of the Qingyu Li family. We must seize the inheritance of the Azure Sea. The only pity is that the Li family actually has a starry sky boat. It is really a tortoise shell. It is too troublesome. We have to think about it in the long run. The Yellow Spring sect monk talked a lot to himself. His voice was sometimes hoarse and sometimes shrill. It was as if he had multiple personalities and looked mentally abnormal. Situ Luo lowered his head tightly and did not dare to interrupt. It was obvious that he was already used to it. In the end, the two of them left, leaving quietly and erasing all the magic aura they left behind. After all, this is the territory of the Gengjin sect, which hates evil as much as it hates demonic cultivators. If you are not careful, you will get into big trouble. Li Quanqing waited for a long time, until the sun rose high and the night faded away, and he did not notice anything unusual. Then he left carefully and successfully returned to the island, and then he could not wait to get into the depths of the Gengjin sky boat, and finally he was completely relieved. A demonic cultivator in the late Gengjin stage, or even the Gengjin Great Perfection stage. Li Quanqing sat cross-legged in the hall, his face as gloomy as water, and he could not help but feel a sense of urgency in his heart, and was extremely wary. He was not only worried about this demonic cultivator. Although the Gengjin Great Perfection was strong, he had many trump cards, and had the Gengjin sky boat as a support. He was already very confident of killing this person. What worried him most was the Huangquan sect behind this person. The Azure Sea and the Yellow Spring, between life and death. Hearing this sentence, you know that the two inheritances definitely have a connection, and they should be able to make up for some of each other's shortcomings. Moreover, this person directly regarded him as a great medicine, and wanted to swallow him to break through the nascent soul. It seems that this has happened countless times. It can be seen that countless years ago, the two sects were definitely in a relationship of life and death. Unfortunately, with the destruction of Shai and Ao, the sect monks drifted everywhere, and the Blue Sea sect also completely declined. Perhaps only their branch was left. The former enemy of the Taoism is still thriving. Huangquan sect. There is no such name among the nascent soul sects of the Demon Dao in the East China Sea. I think it should be the so-called hidden sect. Li Quanqing thought in his heart. The East China Sea cultivation world is prosperous, and the demon race is rampant. The relationship between the righteous and the evil has eased, far from being as incompatible as in ancient times. Therefore, those great sects of the Demon Dao also occupied many sea areas, swaggering, opening their mountain gates to recruit disciples, and they are quite prosperous. Among them, the more famous ones are the True Demon Sect, the Corpse God Sect, the Blood River Sect, the Six Desire Sect, etc., all of which are famous nascent soul sects. If we are really desperate, we can only go to the 4C sect. I hope we don't have to go this far. Li Quanqing sighed and made a decision in his heart. The 4C sect is the strongest sect in the East China Sea, and it is also the remaining Taoist lineage of the Xian Dao. It is very likely to accept the Li family. His original plan was to wait until he formed a nascent soul, then visit them, trace his roots, and find a big backer for himself. If he joined them at the Jiandan realm, he would definitely not be taken seriously, and he might even be forced to hand over the Bhao Shenggong. We still have to become stronger. Li Quanqing recognized his own future, and his eyes became firm again. If the Li family wants to increase its strength, in addition to relying on many monsters, the only way may be the ruins left by the Xian Dao. That night, Li Quanqing set off again, and decided to explore that sea area. He gave the task of guarding the battlefield to Li Kunlun, and then put on the hidden turtle shell, blended into the night, and completely passed through the blockades and truly entered the monster clan sea area. The cold wind was like a knife, the dark blue sea water rustled, an ancient wild breath came to his face, the waves were surging, and it was even more vast and spectacular. As Li Quanqing walked, the stars above his head were shining, and the moonlight poured on the sea, forming a silver light band that extended to the end of his vision, and disappeared into the vast night. His speed was extremely fast, like a comet across the sky, directly crossing a distance of 60,000 miles and successfully arriving at this familiar sea area. In order to facilitate memory, he directly named this place Xian Sea Area. Here we are. Looking at the deep sea water in front of him, Li Quanqing exhaled a breath of turbid air, and he had already seen many familiar islands and scenery. There were also 2 golden elixir monsters hidden in this sea area, but they disappeared at this time, and no one knew where they ran away. The sea water was dark and deeper, like an unfathomable black hole, hiding countless secrets. Li Quanqing did not search randomly, but took out a strand of hair with a red rope tied on it, and was well prepared. This was what Zhao Keiwei left behind when they got married. Later, Li Quanqing took the initiative to leave it to him, perhaps thinking of redemption. Li Quanqing used the tortoise hexagram to explore Zhao Keiwei's location with the help of this strand of hair and comprehend the mysteries of heaven. Zhao Keiwei had many secrets and definitely knew this sea area better than he did. He should solve this problem first, and perhaps he would encounter some unexpected surprises. In the end, Li Quanqing successfully calculated a direction and without hesitation, he thoroughly penetrated into this ancient sea area. Chapter 300 Xian Ruins. Li Quanqing walked in the Xian Sea. The dark sea water was surging, revealing an ancient and wild atmosphere. The moonlight was like silver, reflecting between the clouds. He kept performing the turtle hexagram, using the hair in his hand to change direction from time to time, and finally came to a deserted island. On the edge of the island, there was an isolated cliff with rugged rocks, which looked no different from those ordinary islands. Kai Kai. The hair in Li Quanqing's hand began to burn slowly, turning into wisps of green smoke, as if it had its own life, drilling into the depths of the sea along the cliff. Li Quanqing covered the surroundings with his spiritual sense. The spiritual energy was thin and the life was dead. It looked like a deserted island, without even any traces of monsters. Out of caution, he directly took out the void shears for self-defense. With the Yuanying spirit treasure in hand, he was relieved enough. Following the guidance of the green smoke, he went deep into the sea. After diving hundreds of meters, he suddenly found a cave on the cliff. The green smoke curled up and drilled into the dark cave like a little snake. The seawater was gurgling and freezing. After arriving here, the hair in Li Quanqing's hand was completely burned out and turned into ash. There is no breath of life. He extended his spiritual sense, spreading like a spider web, and took in the entire cave. Even though it was pitch black here, it seemed as clear as day to him, like looking at the lines on his palm. There was no danger, and no living creatures existed. Li Quanqing broke through the seawater and walked into the cave. The passage at the beginning was narrow and winding, and only one person could pass through. At the end, the space suddenly became wide, and there were even water plants growing wantonly. With a splash, He broke through the water and poked his head out and immediately saw an underground cave that was connected to the sea and led directly to the depths of the island. Li Quanqing couldn't help but sigh. It was really hard for Zhao Keiwei to find such a remote place. He looked up and looked around and saw a lot of wet moss growing on the surface of the cave above his head, flashing a dark light. There are no buildings in the entire cave, only an ancient altar, which is completely carved out of stone and engraved with ancient and mysterious symbols. It can be seen that the moss on a stone wall has been wiped off, revealing a trace of ocean water in the shape of the Chinese character which is the symbol of Xi'an Road. It's here. Li Quanqing looked at the environment and found that there were traces of tiny creatures left here, which should be left by Zhao Keiwei. This cave is where she last appeared and lived, but unfortunately it is gone now. Not even a corpse was seen. Because of this altar, there must be something hidden. Li Quanqing flew out of the seawater completely, raised his hand and cast a spell, turning into a white ball of light, completely illuminating the dim environment here. He stroked the altar carefully. It was cold and rough, and the polishing was not very careful, but it was very hard, and it looked like it was left behind countless years ago. Those symbols and patterns moved around like winding little snakes, or like phoenixes flying high, revealing a breath of distorted space. Teleport. Altar? Li Quanqing was a little unsure. He was familiar with these things that contained abundant void power from his daily contact with void butterflies. Since Xi'an Dao could build a submarine secret passage that runs through the entire East China Sea, it was obviously very good at the void, especially teleportation. He fiddled with it for a while and found that he couldn't understand it at all. Many of these ancient technologies have been lost for many years. Fortunately, Li Quanqing had prepared for it and took out the Xi'an token. This was the token he obtained from the last generation of the Whale Emperor sect. It had once caused a strange phenomenon in this sea area, but now it seemed quiet and lying in the palm of his hand. Li Quanqing placed the Xi'an token on the surface of the stone altar. The next moment, those symbols and patterns were actually activated and began to shine. I saw the silver white runes flowing. The light was blazing, stirring the void, shuttling through endless distances, as if they were leading directly to a mysterious place. Densely packed symbols bloomed, like stars interweaving, and finally turned into an elliptical space door, with silver white lines intertwined and entangled. Crash. The next moment, countless water flows emerged from it, showing the clearest sea blue, as gorgeous as gems. These water flows condensed, and did not disperse, converging in the space door, turning into a sea blue water mirror with a circle of silver edges inlaid on the edge. Why do I feel not quite the same as the teleportation array I imagined? Li Quanqing stroked his chin, a little hesitant, but finally stepped in. The cool sea water soaked him and wrapped him up in it. The endless tsunami echoed in his ears, and he couldn't tell where he was for a while. A strong sense of weightlessness came, and Li Quanqing felt as if his body was surging with the sea water, as if drifting with the waves, crossing the void, and losing his sense of direction. The next moment, Li Quanqing suddenly opened his eyes and found that he had completed the teleportation process and was floating in a clear sea. The light above his head was dazzling and warm, and the breeze blew slowly. The water was surging and rustling, as if he had come to a blue sea and blue sky with white sand. Li Quanqing sat up and looked around, but there was nothing else except the endless sea. There were no islands, no beaches, no trees, no life, only the endless sea water, blue as glass, calm as a mirror. Is this the ruins of Xi'an Dao? Li Quanqing was hesitant, and the Xi'an token suddenly glowed and flew into the air, as if it was controlled by an invisible force. Then, the clear sea water surged, entangled on the surface of the token, and turned into lines of surging handwriting. The bloodline magic aura has passed, and it is confirmed that you are a disciple of Xi'an Dao. Do you want to start the inheritance test? Li Quanqing was a little surprised. He didn't expect this trip to be so smooth. He didn't make any preparations at all. An unknown test, will there be life-threatening danger? He thought about it, and finally made up his mind. He said with a firm look, I refuse. Splash. The sea was still surging, and nothing happened. The Xi'an token was still suspended above the sky, and the word water was crystal clear. Li Quanqing tried a few more times, and finally found out helplessly that he had no power to refuse now. If he couldn't complete this test, he seemed to never find the way back. Why does it feel a bit tricky? Li Quanqing muttered in a low voice, and finally said helplessly, start the test. It has been confirmed that the disciple is willing to open the Cheyenne inheritance. The experience is about to begin. Please kill the opponent with your own strength. This time, the wool wrapped around the Cheyenne token reacted exceptionally quickly, and even gave people a very intelligent feeling. The font transformed by the water flow dissipated, and then the sea under his feet surged endlessly, splitting to both sides, revealing a huge monster. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.